Well, hello everyone. It's Kevin here with Mobile DJ Remastered. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. And this is video 2 of a 3-part series about strengths for DJs. So if you haven't already, please go back and watch video 1 for an introduction and also an assessment that can help you take and then get your 5 top strengths. We're going to talk about strengths today, and I'm actually going to go over all 34 strengths from the Gallup CliftonStrengths Finders research, and we'll talk about each of them. We'll do a little definition. We'll talk about, like, for example, what makes a really good use of this strength, and maybe what are some blind spots to look out for, and then some ideas for how to strengthen that strength that's already there for you if you have it. I have some slides for you just like last time. I'll put these slides in the link in the description below so that you can access them. So we had our introduction and assessment as our first video. Okay, video 2 is where we are today, and that's going to be all about the strengths themselves. And then video 3 will be a call to action, next steps. What can you do with this knowledge to help yourself grow? The way I'm going to talk through the strengths is based on the strengths domains. And you can see we have these 4 domains. Influencing, which means a strength that helps you move others to action. We have executing, which is all about pushing toward results. We have strategic thinking, which is all about analyzing the world around you and around oneself. And then we have relationship building, and that's building connections with others. I do have a slide in here that defines all 34 strengths on one page if you want to take a look at that. But let's go ahead and look at these one by one. Okay, first, activator. And this is our first in the influencing domain. And people with strong activator can make things happen by turning thoughts into action. They are often impatient. And a great way to describe them is go, okay? They want to go, go, go. And for each of these, I want to talk through what does excellence look like? And then I want to talk about how maybe someone with too much activator in a bad way can impact our world around them. So if you think about it, it's almost like each strength has a basement, which is like, a not so good place with that strength, and then a balcony, a really great thing that you can achieve with the strength. So I'll talk through those. And then I'll give you some blind spots. And then, of course, I'll tell you about some way to build the strengths. Okay, imagine a DJ coming into an event. Maybe it's a wedding. And the DJ wants to get the vibe set even before, the reception is supposed to start, before cocktail hour, before the guests even arrive. So that activator is in the mindset of go, go, go. So they might go ahead and start the music and start playing, jams right before they're supposed to even. So you're going to get the effect, the very positive effect of the staff kind of getting engaged. You're going to get yourself as the DJ in the mindset of like, yeah, we're in this party. And you're just creating a great welcoming environment for the guests before they even arrive. So that would be like an activator mindset. So let's talk about DJs using activator in a poor way. So imagine if you had a DJ that's an activator and they're really confident and, hey, you know what? I've done a million events. I know how to load in my equipment into any venue. So I'm not even I got this new venue. I'm not even gonna check it out though. I'm just gonna show up and do my thing because I'm an activator and I can just go. Imagine the DJ showing up and not knowing exactly where to load in. Maybe they don't have enough electrical cord to reach the outlet where they need to be set up at. So they have to borrow an extension cord from the venue, those kind of scenarios. That would be an activator with a poor example. Some potential blind spots for being an activator: you may not give a lot of credence to planning. You may not put a lot of value in planning and pre-planning because you have that confidence that you can just take things as they come. Another potential blind spot is some people might see you as a ready, fire, aim type of individual as opposed to ready, aim, fire. If you are an activator, as I mentioned, I'm going to give you guys some ideas on how to build on your strengths. This is kind of like feeding your dragon. Okay, this is like, a workout for that strength. So I've got a couple ideas here for each of the strengths that I'll let you know about. First, you can partner with idea people because they're going to basically help formulate these thoughts and ideas and things, and then you can help them tremendously by activating them, by getting that idea into the real world. Since you learn more from experience rather than studies, seek out those experiential type of activities and things. So those things, immersing yourself in new experiences will help sharpen your saw. It'll help you just be more of an activator. You want to identify the key decision makers in your industry or in your company, because when you want to activate something, you want to move quickly and you want to pull on all the right resources to make things get moving in the right direction. Finally, for activator, you want to partner with people that can help you finish the play. You certainly are great at getting things started. You're almost like, if you're cutting the grass, you're almost like the pull string on the lawnmower. You're going to get things started, but you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you have to run the full project. You probably want to partner with people that can finish the play and run the project, and you can move on to starting something else. Next up, we're talking about command. And command is basically defined as people with strong command have presence, and they can take control of a situation and make decisions. Candid, truth-based leadership really comes from people with command. Let's talk about an example of a DJ with excellent use of command. One idea would be, imagine that at a wedding or an event, something happens that affects everyone. Like, for example, the cake vendor just not showing up, okay? Or maybe the groom gets drunk, just gets really, really drunk. And that's going to affect everybody. So command as a DJ would be exhibited really well if you were able to almost take control of the situation, take stock of resources and point them in the right direction so that you can keep the thing moving, keep the wedding pushing forward and keep everybody calm and collected. Some examples there would be, in the case of the cake vendor, perhaps you're able to find somebody, a trusted part of the family. Maybe it's an usher, somebody who, you're in the reception, the usher's job is done. So maybe you have the usher go down to the local grocery store and pick up a cake because, gosh, we've got to have a cake, right? And it might not be it's not going to be the wedding cake, but it's going to be something. Maybe with the drunk groom situation, maybe you go and you talk to the photographer and you say, hey, look, I don't know if you can tell, but he's blitzed. Don't take any pictures or put him in a lot of pictures, okay? Just go ahead and get other people because they don't want to remember those, that situation. Or maybe something like you go and grab the groom's dad and you're like, hey, can you kind of watch him, make sure he doesn't go back up to the bar? Maybe you tell the bartenders, hey, cut him off. Whatever you do to kind of like command the situation to keep things moving along relatively smoothly. That'd be an example of command in a good way. In a bad way, DJ, imagine the situation where a DJ gets into an argument with the day of coordinator or the wedding planner in front of everybody because of a timeline discrepancy. And the DJ wants it their way, and the venue staff or the day of coordinator want it their way, and you butt heads a little bit. And in your attempt to try to exhibit your strong command and no, this is how we're going to do this because this is what the plan was, you actually create a lot of friction. You create some embarrassment, and then the whole vibe is off for the rest of the evening with that team. Okay, so that would be like a poor use of command in a situation as a DJ. Okay, some potential blind spots for those with strong command. Some people might view you as being a little bossy, okay? Some people might see that as, you're trying to exert your command over them, and that could feel a little bossy or feel a little bit, you're trying to control too many things. You're being too controlling. The other thing would be, if you're in a situation where you have multiple folks anointed with command, like we just talked about, the day of coordinator, the wedding planner, they kind of have some leadership roles in a wedding, for example. Those roles, and if you're strong command, a potential blind spot could be you trying to exhibit your command and then butt heads with others with command. So, for example, this idea of too many cooks in the kitchen, that could be a blind spot for you. Some ideas to feed your dragon and build on command: practice using the right tone and choosing your words to prevent being off-putting or aggressive. But instead, you want to strike a chord and be more persuasive. When presented with a conflict or a crisis, step up and take charge, because you're going to have that natural ability to assess the resources, point people in the right direction, and kind of give everybody a sense of calm. that you're leading the issue and taking charge. If you find that situation where you have multiple layers of command or multiple layers of leadership, for example, there's a general that's in charge of the whole battalion or the whole platoon, but you have one, group, one party of troops that you're controlling. So go ahead and exert your command around that group that you're in charge of, or that scope that you have. Don't worry about the whole thing. Okay, I think that can be a good way to sharpen your saw, is to really focus and put a box around what you have control over, and then lead that component and not try to control the whole thing. Okay, next up is communication. And this is one of my top 5, so I'm very familiar with this strength. People strong in the theme generally find it easy to put their thoughts into words. They're good conversationalists and presenters, storytellers. An easy example of this as a DJ would be to imagine a DJ at an event who's also an MC, which is almost all of the time. We are typically the MC of the event or of whatever's going on. And imagine that this DJ, this MC, speaks slowly, they speak clearly, they use very persuasive and very effective language for people to direct their attention to certain events going on. They're informative and they help engage with people. That could be a way that would inspire folks to be not only informed, but also feel part of the event. That's excellent use of communication. Now, on the downside, or on the poor use of communication, imagine that same DJ, they're great on the mic, but they're also engaging with guests, and they're talking to this person and that other person, and they're talking to venue staff, and they're telling stories, and they're going on and on and on and on. Well, they're engaging on a one-on-one basis, and that's great. And they might even be really friendly and overly gregarious and all this, and everybody loves them. But guess what? Only those individual connections are going to love them, because they're going to be lacking focus. They're going to get off the timeline. They're going to miss out on different things because they're so caught up in their stories and their individual connections. So you really, if you're strong in communication, you could slip into that. You could see where a DJ would fall prey to that. A couple blind spots for those strong in communication. One is efficiency. So, and some of you all know, if you watch my channel, I have a problem with this sometimes. Sometimes the communication folks are not as efficient as they could be. It's almost like, just get to the point. We tend to embellish a lot and talk a lot because we want to communicate ideas. We want to get all the facts in your head and give all that information. So that can be a blind spot for us with communication as a strength. Also, another piece would be essentially not taking feedback from whoever you're communicating to and just thinking of it as a one-way street. Thinking of it as, I've got this idea or this concept, or I'm trying to communicate something and I'm trying to put it in your head. I'm trying to give it to you. But really, communication, effective communication, should kind of be, there should be some feedback because I might need to adjust my message. So that can be a blind spot for us with strong communication. A few hacks to help you build and feed your dragon around communication. Collect and write down stories, jokes, words, anything that resonates with others that engage people. These are going to be tools that you can use over and over again throughout your life or your career to help make connections. Study the technical aspects of communication. I'm talking about grammar, I'm talking about phrasing. That will only help you improve your delivery. It might even help you if you're doing a lot of business communications. Certainly there's formal studies in these kind of things, but also things like PowerPoint, building better slideshows, that kind of stuff. That's going to help you if you study those things academically and get that knowledge. To help focus your communications and help combat that efficiency problem I talked about, try to list out the 2, 3, whatever main points you're trying to get across. The things that you, if your audience left, you want to make sure they leave with. Jot those down, and those are what you hit hard. And those are what you basically put a lot of work into trying to describe. And then all the extra stuff, put it in a link, put it in a supplemental document, put it in the appendix, and say, hey, it's here if you want to go get it. And people will go get it if they want to get it. Next up is competition. So people strong in this theme measure their progress against the performance of others. They strive to win first place and revel in contests. So to think about this as an example of excellence, imagine, if you will, a DJ and several other DJs are all in the running for a high-profile event in their city. And it's a bit of a competitive situation. So the DJ the DJ is talking with the client, trying to listen for what the client's vision is, and they make a very good explanation of their unique value proposition, what they offer, what they bring to the table. And after listening to the client, they come back with, hey, I think here's how I can offer my services to fit your needs. And then later, the DJ follows up, not too much, no pressure, just follows up and is very quick to answer questions. And then imagine the same DJ gets the win, and they're very gracious about it. And maybe imagine that the DJs know each other, and the DJ reaches out, hey, guys, that was a great contest, man. That was tough. I'll make you proud. I'll try to do good, but y'all really brought it. And I'm glad to be part of, this group, this crew that was considered. That kind of gracious acceptance of the win and that kind of way to compete, that is the way that you see excellence in competition. Okay, so let's talk about the flip side. Same scenario, but imagine the DJ being kind of petty, like using tricks like putting the other DJs down just to make himself or herself look better. Imagine the DJ winning and then being real braggy about it and, yeah, look at that, I got it, you guys suck, that kind of stuff. Of course, that's not cool, but that would be a negative form of competition. So if you have this strength, that would be something that, a poor use of it. Some potential blind spots for people with competition: a loss or a failure might be taken a little too hard. Now, of course, there's time to mourn the loss, but get back at it. Take some lessons learned and move ahead. Get back in the fight because you want to keep moving. You don't want to have that loss completely wreck you, but sometimes that could be a blind spot for people with strong competition. Another way competition could have a blind spot would be, imagine if you're not calibrated. You're a bedroom DJ, or maybe you're a mobile DJ like me, doing weddings and events and parties. And in your mind, you think you're competing against Marshmello, okay? Or Avicii or something. No way. That totally different ball game, totally different level. You're, they're producers. They're, selling out these huge concert, arenas and all this. I'm not Avicii anymore, of course, but you get my point. And if you think about it, that is just a calibration problem. And if I feel like I'm competing in my mind against those folks, I'm never gonna really realize my, I'm never gonna feed my competitive nature because I'm playing a wrong game. I'm playing the wrong game, playing at a different level. Know who your real competition is. Know who the real players are in your game. So that would be a potential blind spot. And I guess one more would be, sometimes people, the ends justify the means. So basically they might cheat, okay, just to win. That would be a blind spot, maybe for some with strong competition. They might say, hey, whatever way it gets me from point A to point B, I gotta get there, I gotta win at any cost. And that would, of course, be bad behavior or a blind spot. Okay, so how to hack competition or how to feed your dragon. Here's just some thoughts that I have. Learn what the key measures are, no matter what you're talking about, whatever the game is you're playing, whatever the career is you're in the industry, know what the score is, what score is being kept and what the measures are and how you can stay up to date on that score. And of course, who the players are. We talked about that. Use losses as a way to gain lessons learned and come back even better than last time. Don't let a loss break you down. That's a really great life lesson. It's how to be resilient, to take that as a lesson learned as opposed to a loss. Think about balance metrics too. This can really help you grow in competition strength. It's not just about the win necessarily. Like, think about baseball. Of course you want the win, but it's also about the RBIs. It's also about the hits. It's also about the strikes that you throw. All those metrics, if you watch them and you're growing on them, and maybe you're not winning at the top, but you're growing, that is going to lead to wins eventually. So just some ideas on how to grow as a person with competition. Next up is Maximizer, and this is also a top 5 for me, and I love this one. By the way, this is why I'm doing StrengthsFinder. I think this is the strength that I'm leveraging most, I think, here by talking to you about these topics of strengths for DJs. It's what's manifesting, and it's why I'm driven to do this for you guys. Maximizer. People strong in this theme focus on strengths as a way to stimulate personal and group excellence. They seek to transform something strong into something superb. And I like that concept of polishing the pearl. So, taking that pearl that's already an awesome artifact and polishing it to make it even better. Okay, so here's some examples of balcony and basement usage, if you will. So imagine a DJ that is already really, really good at track selection. Okay, they can read a crowd, they can get some information from their clients or know the demographics of the crowd they're about to play for in their pre-planning, and they're just really good at picking the right songs, throwing in some special picks, that'll wow the crowd, and get them, they make that oh face, like, oh yeah, that's my jam. Also, real time, being able to study and take in data and then think, okay, I think this will work. I think I'm gonna take a left turn here and try this track. That kind of stuff, imagine that DJ that's just in the game, in the zone. They're just really doing well. But that DJ is not going to rest on their laurels. If they're a maximizer and they're living in with their maximizer and they're leveraging it in an excellent way, they're not going to just rest at that level that they're at. They're going to try to go even better. So they're going to continue. They're going to try things out. Like, I'm going to try this track, see how it reacts. And it didn't work. This one, oh yeah, that one did work. Okay, I'm going to write it down. I'm going to type it, whatever. I'm going to remember. I'm going to make a note. And that's that DJ continuously learning, continuously improving. Maybe the DJ's watching gig logs, okay, on YouTube or whatever, and they're paying attention. What's working? They're talking to other DJs. What's working in your market? Hey, have you ever tried this track? Whatever. They're always trying to learn and get into the psyche, okay, the minds of their guests. They're gonna try to get better and better and better. That would be a maximizer at work. Okay, but let's talk about a maximizer, maybe using it in a poor way. And my example here is, imagine a DJ who is the same, they're really, really good at song selection. They're really great at picking the right music for their crowds and rocking a crowd. But let's say they're overweight, okay? They just eat unhealthy food. They have terrible practices with dieting, diets, and they don't exercise. It's just like, they just are a mess, okay? So now they might be really great and continuously growing and getting better and maximizing parts of their life, the DJing part, but they're letting one part just kind of atrophy and just go to hell. And basically that right there, it's almost like with strengths, you don't need to make sure to fix all the potholes in the road, and make it so smooth. Every pothole is smooth, but you need to fill the potholes so that they don't give you a flat tire. Okay, you need to at least address them. So, you can't eat McDonald's 24/7. You can't have a terrible diet, or else guess what? That's gonna inhibit you from growing on the DJ side. You're who knows? You're gonna have health problems. You might not have the stamina to keep going at a show. You might do something like you might even start to look really bad and poor because of that poor hygiene associated with the bad diet. All these things that will come out of not addressing some of the potholes in the road. So again, you don't have to take care of it. You don't have to be like a spitting, shining example of perfect health and and maximize that part of your life and maximize the DJ part. But a poor use of maximizer would be, hey, I'm going to let a fatal flaw take me down and actually impact what I really want to get good at and what I really want to maximize in my life. So a couple blind spots for those with maximizer is, as we just talked about, you addressing issues or problems might be sort of a drainer. You don't really want to jump in and fix problems and that kind of thing necessarily. As a maximizer, you want to take things from good to great. You don't necessarily want to work from bad to good, if that makes sense. So addressing those flaws and that kind of thing could be something that you procrastinate or you put on the back burner. But certainly that could be a blind spot for you. Another blind spot could be that some people might look at you and think you're complacent. So what does that mean? Well, a maximizer wants to take what they're good at and just go and drive and get better. So in other areas of their life, they might not be trying to strive to get better in because it's fine. They filled the pothole. It's not super smooth. It's not great, but it's not going to give me a flat tire. That's fine. Okay. So people might say, wow, you're just like, why don't you try something new? Why don't you, learn? Why don't you improve over here? Why do you always, constantly want to improve over there? So that could be a blind spot for some folks. And it actually might be perfectly fine. But it could be an effect that you see if you're strong in maximizer. Some ideas that might help you grow or strengthen maximizer. So I think if you learn about strengths, this topic we're talking about here, CliftonStrengths, I think this is such a good thing for you, yourself, if you're strong in maximizer, and for you to help other people and think about other people, either on your team or around you in your family or whatever. So learning about strengths can really help you identify the strengths you have and others have and build upon them. So the true form of maximization. Seek out opportunities and roles to help people succeed. That will certainly help you grow and deepen your maximization. Try to make weaknesses irrelevant by basically stepping on them with other strengths. Here's some examples of that. Imagine if you are really bad at communication. Well, find someone with a communication strength and hire them, or try to automate some things. If you are really low in, Relator, okay, you use another strength. Like if you're a maximizer and also an achiever, set up tasks for yourself, and we'll talk about these other strengths in a minute. But set up tasks for yourself to automatically remind you to call your grandma or set up those appointments, those special appointments to connect with people. That way you can essentially focus on maximizing your skills and fill those potholes that might affect your life, like we talked about. Study best practices in others and other organizations, other industries. Those will give you fuel and they'll energize you because you'll be able to apply them to help other people get better. Next up is self-assurance. People strong in this theme feel confident in their ability to manage their own lives. They possess an inner compass that gives them confidence that their decisions are right, and they're often called courageous. An example of excellence with self-assurance: imagine a DJ who is in charge of a very complex event, a lot of timeline shifts, a lot of activities, and it could be pretty stressful. But the DJ with a lot of self-assurance is going to come into it with some gusto, right? Some confidence, like, I can figure this out. We're going to roll with the punches. It might not be right on time exactly, but we're going to get through it. And I'm confident in myself and in those around me that we're going to be able to make this thing happen for this couple or for this client or whatever. So you can imagine that would create a good calming effect for people around you, just naturally. The vendors and the venue staff and other folks, they're going to feel good. The client's going to feel good. Yeah, this DJ's got it. They're going to bring it home for us and make our celebration awesome, even though it's complicated. So that'd be a good use. An example of a DJ using self-assurance poorly. Imagine that a DJ is in a planning session with the client talking about their event, and the client's telling them feedback. They're giving them preferences. They're telling them, hey, these are the kind of things I want to do with the timeline. This is the sequencing I like. And the DJ just kind of dismisses it. Maybe they're taking some notes, but they're just not really like tuned in because they know how to set a timeline. What does this client know? I mean, I've done hundreds of events. I know best. So I'm going to do it the way I'm confident in my abilities, and I'm much more comfortable in doing it my way. So you can kind of see where that would be a poor use of too much self-assurance. Potential blind spots. You might be labeled as, and some of these words are kind of ugly, you might be labeled as stubborn or headstrong or self-righteous, just because you have a very strong compass and you know where you're going and you're not afraid to put that out there and let people know. But so a potential blind spot is you might put it out too rudely and you might get some of those comments from people. Also, you might not be in a position where you collect enough data and you just go forward, okay? You go ahead and make some judgments. You're quick to judge because you have an internal compass. You got your gut check. You know what's going on. And maybe you jump to conclusions a little too fast and you don't take in all the data and really think about, well, maybe this situation is a little different. You're going to go with your gut. That could be a blind spot and you could miss an opportunity. Now let's talk about a couple ideas on how you can strengthen your self-assuredness if you have self-assurance as a high strength. Find opportunities where you need to make lots of decisions to proceed. There isn't already a roadmap on how to do the work. Because if there's a roadmap, you are going to struggle because you want to leverage your own compass to find your way through things, okay? Practice and take notes about methods or argument points that seem to be successful in helping you get others to see your perspective. Those are like your little best practices, the things that work most for you to get people to your side of thinking or your ideas. And that could be very specific to your career, your job, but taking note or mentally remembering or writing down those things that help people get to where you are, those can really help you. And if you continue to use them, they can strengthen your self-assurance. Also, check in with others and try to build some relationships or find some key partners that can be good character judges for you or decision judgment for you. And what I mean by that is if you can have a trusted partner that you could call and say, hey, here's kind of like what I decided to do or what I try to influence these folks to do or the decision I made. What do you think? Is that right? What would you tell me? Or what do you think about that? If you find some people that you trust that can give you straight up criticism, straight up feedback on your decisions, that will help shape you and make sure you're calibrated with what other people should be thinking or what other people might be thinking. So that will help you in your impact for those around you. Next up is significance. So people strong in significance want to be very important in the eyes of others. They are independent and they want to be heard and recognized. They're always on stage. Okay, so if you had to think about someone using significance in an excellent way, I think it's a DJ who's really in tune with their value proposition. They're very in tune with who they are in the market and what they can give to their clients. And they really live it. They live it in their performance, of course. They live it in their social media posts and their marketing. You just see how grounded they are. And then when they're doing their event and they're doing their DJ thing, they just command the stage. They're the big presence. They have a lot of connection with their clients and the clients' guests. And that really kind of feeds on itself because they're embracing the spotlight. They're embracing the stage. And certainly, I think that those folks that make such a high impact at people's events, the client's going to walk away feeling like that person, that DJ, is the reason why my event was such a success. You know, they're going to think about, of course, it was great. The venue staff was awesome. The food was great. But man, that DJ brought it all together. They had such a presence. They had such a connection with everyone, and they did a great job. So that would be like, that would really feed the significance engine for that person with high significance. But imagine a DJ using this a little poorly, okay? So again, with significance, you want to be on stage. You want to be that center of attention. And imagine the DJ who comes in they bring in literally a portable stage, okay? High riser kind of deal. And they bring in like lights and they have this huge truss and they got lights and lasers and all kinds of stuff. And this is a 80-person wedding and they got sound for days. They're just filling the whole venue flooding the venue with sound and flooding it with lights. And it's just way over the top. And it's more about their setup and their gear and their look and them than it is about the client. And you can't even have a conversation in the back of the room because it's just all about this DJ rocking a concert. So that right there would be a bad use of significance, and that would probably actually hurt the person's significance because they're going to probably get negative reviews or no reviews, that kind of thing. I think that's an example of poor use of significance. So what are some potential blind spots for significance? You might forget or devalue the work it takes for behind the scenes to get things done. So for example, if you're in a play and there's actors on the stage, imagine that play without the orchestra pit or the director or the lighting crew or the, whatever. All those folks play a part in making that play awesome. If you just focus on the actor, meaning you just focus on yourself, and you just think about yourself, that could be a blind spot, I think, for someone with significance. Also with significance, you might have an unhealthy bias or need or desire to please a certain person or a certain group. So if you're high significance, you might want to look good always in front of certain people or a certain person. And that could be a blind spot for you. Okay, so what are some ideas to improve or strengthen your significance if you have it as a top strength? First, I think you should find roles and opportunities where you are on the center stage. That's certainly, it could be a DJ, it could be anything like that, but that would be a way to leverage that as a strength and build upon it. Also, volunteer for work where the stakes are very high, okay? Where it's a project or any kind of activity, maybe there's a fire. You want to sign up for that because your significance is going to propel you forward and it's going to help you drive towards success. Remember that failures are opportunities for learning, and just because you fail at something, don't, I think, consume yourself with thinking about your impact to your reputation and figuring that out. Of course, that'll be something that you think about, but remember that you can learn and people will appreciate that you're human and you do make mistakes. So just come clean and move forward. And finally, I think if you seek out channels of meaningful feedback, especially when it can encourage you. And what I mean by that is client reviews, as a DJ, getting that review after the event and the client's like, yeah, they rocked it. They rocked that wedding. They rocked that party. I really loved, when DJ Kevin did this. That is fuel for somebody with significance. It's really going to help you and just going to make you want to try better and get more of that. And finally, in the influencing domain, we have woo. Okay, and this is also another one that I have in my top 5. So woo is people strong in this theme love the challenge of meeting new people and winning them over. They derive satisfaction from breaking the ice and making a connection with another person. Winning others over. Okay, that's what woo stands for. So this is a theme, as I mentioned, a strength that I have. And so an example of excellence with woo, imagine a DJ that is very welcoming as guests arrive to the event. They're greeting them. They're using eye contact. They're even walking out from behind the DJ booth, shaking their hands or whatever, fist bump. Hey guys, how's it going? How was the ceremony with the new couple? Was it awesome? Was it beautiful? Oh, that's wonderful. Hey, are you ready to dance tonight? What's your jam? What are you getting into? Those kind of welcoming comments and that first impression, you're really connecting and engaging with the crowd. You're building rapport for later when you want to bring those folks up to the dance floor and get them dancing. And they're just going to have better enhanced memories if you do it that way. Also, you could play with them a little bit, like, hey, maybe you meet Uncle Jimmy, and Uncle Jimmy's a gregarious, nice, funny guy. And later in the evening, you're like, all right, here's that Justin Bieber song that you wanted, Uncle Jimmy. Like playing around a little bit. That's all part of woo, winning others over, bringing people into the event and basically making quick friends, making fast friends with folks. I think an example of a DJ with woo in a bad way would be a DJ who's all talk and all sales and all sizzle, but no steak, okay? They're not really that good. They just have a really good marketing way about them. I'm sure you all have run into people like this in your lives, and sometimes in overly pushy sales roles, you'll find these type of folks. And what the DJ would be, I think, is, very, very compelling in the sales conversation, very good, and maybe even in the planning session, but or at the wedding show or wherever you're talking to, new clients. But then once you actually get the DJ there on the floor, in the venue, ready to go, they just suck. Okay, they're not very good MCs. They're not playing great music. They're not listening to what the couple wanted or what the client wanted, and they're just not really that good. And that is, of course, going to be impacted. That's going to impact for sure the clients, because they're going to feel like, oh, I got sold on that, and they're really not that good. So that would be a bad use of woo, when you don't have something to back it up, or you're not being genuine with your woo, I guess would be a good way to say it. So a couple blind spots with woo, and again, I know some of these firsthand. One is you really have to think beyond. If you're strong in woo, you have to think beyond just the first initial meeting or the first few interactions. You have to think that building long-term relationships are not just about one-time event. So for example, if you meet someone and you hit it off and everything's good, and maybe even you're friends for a little bit, and then you can't assume in your mind, which some of us with woo do. You might assume in your mind that a year down the road, 2 years down the road, that you left them in the same state. You already won them over. Okay, you're good. But don't think of it that way. Think of it as that could be a blind spot for you. Think of it as a relationship that needs to be cultivated, to the extent that you want to keep it. Also, I think people with woo will sometimes find it frustrating, and this is a blind spot for us, when you are trying to win someone over that just is not very impressed with your sales tactics and your woo tactics. Maybe you're overly positive, or maybe you're kind of like, you're not connecting with them. They might not be giving you the feedback you want, and you don't feel like you can win them over, and it could be draining, and you could almost get into bad behaviors trying to win them over. Buying them lunch or giving them gifts, or like just going overboard. That can be a blind spot. Some people just don't want to be won over, or don't have that feedback loop, and are not going to ever check the box for you in that way. So just a couple blind spots. I think some ways to think about woo and how to strengthen it if you have it. Network with lots and lots of people. Network everywhere, in and out of your industry, out of your job, in all kinds of different circles. Join organizations, committees, just anywhere where you can get in front of a lot of people and get into a lot of different connections. It will energize and fuel you. Find opportunities and roles where you can interact with a lot of people. That's really going to help you. I think being a mobile DJ is such a good way of me fueling my woo. Okay. You'll naturally be inclusive in crowds of new people. So just embrace it and just be that person that leans in when you have a group of new people. People will very much appreciate your ways about you. You're reaching out to them, maybe even making connections between people that like, oh, I just met Sally, who happens to work at the same place that you work at. So have you guys met? No, you haven't. Well, let's introduce you. Those kind of connections, especially in social situations where some people feel awkward, can really break the ice and really help not only you, but other people feel really good. So go ahead and lean into that. Another hack, I think, for woo is collect little interesting stories. Like I'll listen to podcasts and pick up little bits, little things going on in the news that are super interesting, or pick up some jokes. Always have a little bank of dad jokes with me. I always do that. And just have those little things, little factoids that you can just pop into people, and just to help you when you're doing those initial conversations with brand new people, and you can really help bring them into and win them over. All right, folks, now we're into the executing domain, and this is all about pushing toward results. Our first strength here is achiever. So people strong in achiever have a great deal of stamina and work hard. They take great satisfaction from being busy and productive. They want to get stuff done and drive toward completion of open tasks. So an example of excellence in the DJ world for achiever would be, imagine the DJ who has a checklist of tasks for every event that they do, for every all the preparation tasks. So, getting their gear, making sure they've got everything in their bag or in their truck or whatever, making sure that they check in with the client on this, that, and the other thing. Having that very regimented process and all the little tasks and basically checking them off as they go, making sure that they're super organized and they repeat the best practices that they've accumulated. That'd be the use, a very good, excellent use of the achiever strength. A DJ with a poor use of achiever might be in the case of when a DJ has that same kind of list of tasks and they basically have to check off every box. They have to, even when sometimes they're not needed. Maybe some of the tasks are not needed or some of the questions are not needed. So, but the DJ with achiever that's maybe a little bit in the basement is going to be compelled to check off that task. Another example would be maybe holding on too tight to a plan or a set of tasks. So for example, a timeline for an event, and maybe some new things have happened and we need to be a little bit flexible with the timeline. But no, that achiever mindset would force you to just keep barreling through, keep moving through the paces. Okay, sometimes an achiever is accused of not going with the flow. Okay, that'd be a potential blind spot. And sometimes also achievers get frustrated when some of the strategic thinking themes take a little bit too long or they're a little too fluffy. When you're an achiever, you want to get down to what are the tasks we need to complete to get there, and less thinking and more doing is where they live. So let's talk about some steps to enhance or grow your strength as an achiever. So first, I think everyone with achiever should invest in visual task management software or systems or an app or something to track their tasks. And you can organize them. You can run, you could certainly run different statistics on them. You could look at your completion rates over time. All that stuff will really energize and excite any achiever. I think also in the DJ world, you could use things like DJ Event Planner or Vibo or other tools that help you with workflow. You're going to love workflow tools and you're going to love the task orientation if you're an achiever. Also, you could use a scoring system for yourself, okay? So imagine this, if your goal is to complete 5 tasks a day and whatever, that might make you excited, but what if your goal was to achieve 50 points every day? And different tasks had different points values, like, hey, doing anything around the house that takes 15 minutes or less, that's just 5 points. But doing something like cleaning out the garage, that's a 15-pointer. Whatever that looks like for you in your career or in your personal life, that's a great hack to help you really lean into your achiever mentality. And if you're competition as well, boy, that'll really go together very nicely. Also, just as an achiever, a great way to keep that achiever mindset is break those big jobs into small tasks and track them at the small task level. Try not to think of everything in the large sense, because you're going to be much more fulfilled if you can check off 10 little tasks versus one big task. Next up, we have a ranger. A ranger, people with strong in a ranger can organize, but they can also have a flexibility about them that complements the organization skill. They like to figure out how all the pieces and resources can be arranged for maximum productivity. An example of someone who is an arranger and in the DJ world could be where, imagine a situation where a DJ is working with a couple and they want to do a send-off with sparklers, and the best man was in charge of the sparklers, but guess what? He misplaced them. You can't find them. He can't find them. He forgets where they were. No one has seen the sparklers since the beginning of the night. So what are we going to do? Well, an arranger type person would certainly do a couple things, I think. They would assess the situation. They would think about, well, okay, who do I have? What can I do? Oh, I remembered that there's a Walmart I saw down the street and when I was driving in. So there's that. And let me check real fast. Oh yeah, looks like I checked online. Looks like Walmart has sparklers. Hey, you know what? I'm going to go grab somebody, some trusted person from the family or the wedding party that can leave the wedding, go down and pick up some sparklers, bring them back and save the send-off, save the sparkler send-off. That'd be somebody who was practicing a ranger in a really great way. In the same sense, someone using a ranger in a bad sense would be, or in a bad way, would be someone who is trying to maneuver the resources around or trying to maneuver people, like sending, one of the bridal party down to Walmart to pick up some sparklers, but doing it in a rough way or a way that just doesn't connect with the people, and almost being forceful with, hey, no, this is how this has got to go because it's going to be the most productive, or no, you have to go do that. You go over here. And that kind of that kind of mentality can be very poor use of the arranger theme. So some blind spots for arrangers could be that people don't always see the connections that you see, or the layout and organization that you see, and that could frustrate you. Also, messiness and messy people will frustrate you because it's not that hard, you will think. It's not that hard just to put it in its place. Also, you may have problems with series of repetitive tasks, because that could be very draining for you. And I think some hacks to help build up your arranger, if you have that strong arranger, enhance your DJ events, planning sessions and your planning meetings and your process, because the more you know about your client, like the more questions you ask during those planning sessions, the more you're going to have resources to draw upon when things happen, or when you want to try to string together the best possible event for your client. So get a lot of questions answered. Go deeper than, just if you're talking to a wedding couple, what's your intro song? What kind of slow songs do you want for slow dances later? Go a little deeper. Ask them things like, hey, what years did you guys graduate high school? Because that right there will tell you, like, they probably have a lot of formative years with songs and music in those high school years, and you'd be able to pull from that. You'd be able to enhance your your whole ability to execute on the event. So anything that gives you a resource is a good thing for an arranger. Also, you should offer to organize big events, or big issues or big things going on, because you're naturally going to be very good at assessing resources and trying to sort them into the right spots. So think of a big fundraiser or anything like that, where there's a lot of moving pieces. You're really good at that way of thinking. Also, just to increase your resourcefulness, I think you should make emergency kits for yourself. Okay, so think of it like the DJ emergency kit. I have one of those videos where I talk about my little go-to DJ emergency kit, which is a great thing for me. I'm not an arranger, but it's been very useful for me. I think it'd be extra useful if you had those kind of emergency kits as an arranger too. Okay, next up is belief. People strong in belief have certain core values that are unchanging, unwavering. Out of these values emerge a defined purpose for their life, dependable, and others know where they stand. They wear their values on their sleeves. And an example of a DJ using belief in an excellent way would be, imagine if a DJ is, their core value is more about trying to make people have an awesome event, trying to really give them such a great, memorable experience that they talk about it with all their friends and family, and that's their goal in life. That's what they live for. And it's not the money, and it's not the fame or whatever you'd say. It's all about making people's events the best they can be, and that's really their brand, and that's what they exude. Well, the client's going to pick up on that. They're going to see it in everything you do, and that DJ is going to be held up as, wow, this person, they have such a strong connection with their core value of making our day memorable. And here's how it actually came to life. These reasons and these examples that jive and align with that core value. They'll see it. So that'd be an excellent use. I think an example of a poor use of belief would be trying to stamp your beliefs on other people. So imagine the couple that is getting married and their DJ is talking to them, and the DJ is asking them, well, so who's going to do the blessing? And the couple says, you know what, we're not going to have a blessing. We don't want to do that. and the DJ is like visibly irritated. Well, are you sure? Like, we should probably have a blessing. And it's almost like the DJ is putting their religious beliefs, or maybe their beliefs and core values around the formal traditions of a typical wedding. They're trying to push that on the couple. And I think that would be a poor use of now certainly us DJs can coach and we can bring certain things to light for the couple, but it has to be done with a certain humility and a certain, reverence for their wishes. It is their event. We have to keep that in mind. Some potential blind spots for belief. You should realize that not everyone has the same moral compass as you, or the same core value compass. Some folks might have a stronger compass. Look, everyone's different, and I think a fallacy or a blind spot for people with belief is that others have a very strong opinion or a very strong compass as well. So you have to remember that that's not always the case. I think some folks with belief could be looked at as being a little stubborn, okay, because they're set in their ways. They make no bones about, this is how I believe and this is what I'm all about. So that could lead you maybe to be a little bit judgmental if you wholly believe in your core value and your set of values, and you don't leave room for any others. That could leave you a little bit judgmental against other folks. That would just be a natural blind spot for folks with a strong belief. So some examples of ways that you can help feed that dragon of belief is invest time in articulating your strong core values. Maybe even come up with a purpose statement, because this would be really helpful for you yourself to articulate it, but also to share with others so they can understand where you're coming from and where your values lie. Also, you should for sure have a end goal in mind, or a big goal, or sometimes I call it the lighthouse. What is your trajectory? Where are you going? Because if you have a big goal in your career, in your life, what you can do is you can make sure that any activity, any decision that comes up, it aligns with your beliefs, and you can almost make a decision like, hey, is this get me closer to my goal while staying aligned with my belief system and my core values? Okay, it does, great, it's good. So that could be really helpful for you. Also, spend time with like-minded folks, but also engage with diverse thinkers, because people that think a little different or have a different value than you, it's really good to stay plugged in with that. You don't want to shut yourself off from that way of thinking. Even if it's not your cup of tea, it's good to be aware and good to have knowledge of those diverse thinkers. Okay, next up is consistency. People strong with consistency are keenly aware of the need to treat people the same. They try to treat everyone in the world with consistency by setting up clear rules and adhering to them. Fairness, balanced, those are other ways to describe people with consistency. So let's think about an example of a DJ with excellent use of consistency. Imagine the DJ who has a very meticulous and robust plan that he communicates with every vendor and the venue before every event. So he makes sure that everybody is on the same page and they have the same information. Things like the final timeline, things like the different moments or song selections that could be very useful for folks like the photographer and others. All those pieces of information, but making sure that everybody's got the same information. Another example could be that the DJ has a very robust cleanup routine, okay? Every time the DJs finish at an event, they go through and she has a whole list of, okay, she's gonna do this with her controller and her speakers, and this is what she's gonna do with her cables, and she's gonna clean everything down and do a good cable wrap and put everything right where it needs to go. Those kind of like setup routines, that consistency that she would bring every time, that process, that's gonna make sure that she's ready to go the next time for the next event. Okay, so a poor use of consistency would be, imagine in the same scenario, we've got this DJ who's got this great process about cleaning and setting up and organizing at the end of her events for loadout. But imagine that she is playing at an arena, and I've done this before, like a horse arena, and there was dust everywhere, and everything had a coat of dust on it. And imagine that this DJ was just so stuck in her process and the consistency had to be there, and you're going through and she's got to clean everything, and it added like an hour and a half to her process of cleaning up, and everybody's waiting around for the DJ because they need for her to go before they can lock up. Imagine that impact, right? That'd be a poor use. Another way, back to treating people the same, imagine if you are trying to treat everybody the same. You could definitely perhaps miss an opportunity, or even be rude or exclusive, not inclusive, with somebody who has a special need or something. So there's some ideas or some ways that you could use consistency in a bad way. One other example I thought of a poor use of consistency is, imagine a DJ who is working with a venue and they notice that every once in a while the clients are given some freebie, okay? And it doesn't seem to have a rhyme or reason, but maybe it's like linen, a big linen feature that drapes across the chandeliers or something. And sometimes it's free for the clients, and then sometimes the DJ notices that the clients have to pay for it, and it's like a $1,000 kind of thing. And it doesn't really have a rhyme or reason. So a poor use would be of consistency would be the DJ feels this compelling need to call that out. So they badmouth the venue to others, or even other clients who might be there, and saying, "Oh yeah, they don't treat everybody the same. They kind of give folks some folks a deal and some folks not, and there's no rhyme or reason." So that could be a negative impact if you're badmouthing a venue. Some potential blind spots, we already kind of talked about it. I think where consistency comes into play and your peanut butter spreading across all the bread, you might miss a couple opportunities, unique opportunities that could present themselves if you're looking for things that are unique. So this also could come to play if you're not making special accommodations for special needs situations. So I would say that even though if you're strong and you have a high consistency, just try to pay attention to some of those differences and those input points, even though it might be a blind spot for you. So some things to help you strengthen your consistency: identify what rules or processes are most important to your work or your life, and consider how you can protect them, or you can put a box around them. Like, if the cleaning piece of a DJ's wrap-up routine is so important, what could you do to make sure that you always do the cleanup, even if you had a dusty, crazy horse arena that you were playing in and you had dust over everything? Maybe it's just maybe even a frame of thought, like, you know what, I'm not going to do my cleaning here and impact everybody. I'm going to put all the cables in this big trash bag, and then tomorrow morning, or when I get home tonight, that's when I'll do my deep clean of each of the cables, and I'll do my wrapping, and I'll put everything away. Things like that can help you really protect and put a box around those processes and those things that you want to keep consistent. Also, I think you should always communicate to others how straying from the path could produce negative effects. Okay, so that's a good way to almost justify your consistency and why you're trying to keep everything on track. You should also identify the habits that give you the most energy and repeat those. So for example, if working out at 6 a.m. is something that you definitely want to do and you want to always make sure that you do because it's giving you the most energy, and it's that consistent habit and routine helps you, well, make sure that you can put that in a repeatable fashion. Okay, guys, the next one up is deliberative. People strong in this theme are best described by the serious care they take in making decisions or choices. They anticipate the obstacles, they're careful, and they're vigilant. An example of excellence with deliberative would be, imagine the DJ who is doing a ceremony in a wedding for a couple, and they attend rehearsal. They want to meet everybody. They want to kind of make sure that the rehearsal steps. We go through the process of the rehearsal. They want to know how many steps is it from where the bride's going to enter for her processional to the altar? How many steps is it, or how long will it take so I can make sure to time the song right? All those things that help you get familiar with potential issues and maybe fail points, and plan for a solution for them, or plan for a backup or whatever. So that kind of deliberative activity of paying close attention to all the things that could go wrong in the rehearsal and trying to make sure that you're thinking about all those things, that'd be an excellent use of deliberative. Now, imagine the DJ in a poor use of deliberative. Imagine the DJ who goes to the rehearsal and makes everybody kind of go through the process, and then they do it again and again and again, and they end up doing it 6 times. And they're basically trying to get everybody to do things perfect and get it almost robotic in their head so that you can wipe out any chance of risk. That would certainly be overkill. Okay, that'd be too deliberative. That'd be going over and trying to prevent mistakes in an obsessive fashion. I think that would be too much. A potential blind spot for the deliberative person is that you might take too much time analyzing the risks, poring over the potential pitfalls of some scenario or some situation. That could be a potential blind spot for you, for sure. And also another blind spot, people might erroneously call you a naysayer, or they might call you, they might think that you're not bought into the vision, or you're not bought into what we're trying to do. And it's not that. You're just trying to bring up the points so that it's a success, but you could be labeled that way. Okay, some hacks that if you are a deliberative person, here's some ideas. So try to build a process around your planning, what the steps are, what's the mental exercises you go through, the tools you use, the partners you're going to talk to, all of those things that help you quickly assess the risks before you proceed. If you can build a process around that and automate it a little bit, or maybe have it almost like a little bit of a toolkit for yourself, that's going to be really helpful for you. And it'll make everybody else feel like you did your assessment, you, the deliberative person, assess things, and you can help with making sure that people feel confident that they can proceed. Use tryouts or pilots, okay? So try things out first. Those can really expose issues before they even happen in the real world. Also, there's a tool called the pre-mortem, and a pre-mortem is really cool because it's almost like, you've probably heard of a post-mortem, where something goes wrong and you want to get everybody together and study it, like what went wrong, what were the root causes. Well, a pre-mortem is almost like you do the same thing, but you do it before the action or the project or the wedding or whatever it is. And you get together and you say, guys, what could go wrong? Let's put on our the lens or the hat of what could fail. So you have that whole exercise, and then you can do things to prevent those failures from even happening. So it's like a brainstorming kind of tool. Also, I think you should always explain to others, if you're high deliberative, explain to others your motive. You're definitely not trying to slow things down or stop things. You're trying to enable safety and stability so that things can go faster, go forward. I had a boss who used to say that, why do sports cars and race cars have brakes? It's not that they can slow down, it's so they can go faster. And what he meant by that is, if you have a race car with no brakes, you have to basically go, if you're on a windy road, you have to go a certain speed so that you don't fall off the road, okay? But if you have brakes on that race car, you can tear it up on the straightaways and then use the brakes around the bends and then tear it up again when you're on the straightaways. So in any case, the deliberative person certainly can really help out any team. Okay, next up is discipline. So discipline is people strong in this theme enjoy routine and structure. Their world is best described by the order they create. They follow rules and they're often predictable. So my wife is a high discipline, so I have a lot of experience with this one as well. So let's talk about an example of a DJ with high discipline. You get together and you have a very well-defined process for going through a planning session with a client. you're going to get all the information that you need, all the input. You're going to take that information and you're going to have your own process to prepare. And maybe that's building your crates or your playlists of your music. You might even put things in order, the way you wish to play them. You start to do things like, you know what, I'm going to have these transitions. Oh, let me practice that transition because I want to get it really right. So discipline will give you that ability to follow that routine, follow that structure, and make sure that at every point you're doing what the client really wanted, because they're the rule setter. They've set the rules for the event, right? So you're going to kind of walk through that, and that'll be your filter that's running. That'd be an excellent use of discipline for a DJ. Let's think about poor use of discipline. And in the same scenario, a high discipline DJ might be thrown off by requests, might not want to play a request, especially if it's a little bit left field, because they're going to feel like, well, this doesn't jive with the tracks that I planned in my sequencing. It doesn't really connect with what the couple told me they wanted, even though it might be a secret hidden banger, might be a gem that will really get a lot of the crowd going. You might not want to play it, or you might just feel compelled to not play it because you just have that discipline. So that'd be a bad use of discipline. Also, another example I thought of was, imagine that something's taking a really long time, like impacts to a timeline at a wedding, like the bustling of the dress for the wedding dress before the bride can come in the grand introduction. Happens all the time. That bustling, man, if we could figure out a way to like have an instant bustle solution or something, make $1 million, I'm sure. Anyway, so imagine something like that happens and the timeline's thrown off. The high discipline DJ is going to be really irritated. And let's say it takes 20 extra minutes or whatever, and then the introduction can happen. A high discipline DJ might get on the mic and say, all right, folks, we're finally ready to do this introduction. Everybody get ready. That kind of thing, that kind of like passive aggressiveness could come out of a high discipline type person. Okay, so some blind spots to kind of think about. Blind spots are really surprises. Things that you didn't know were coming will really impact negatively any kind of high discipline person. Messy people or messy situations or unplanned events. Those are all blind spots for people that have high discipline, and things that get on your nerves because it just makes you feel out of control, and you're not really sure how to proceed well, and you don't have that structure that you crave. Also, some folks might label you as too rigid or too structured, and that could be something that you're labeled with as a high discipline person. Okay, so let me tell you some tools or some ways, some hacks for building discipline if you're strong in this strength. Building or developing great time management software for yourself. And we've said this on a couple of the strengths, but I think that time management software can really help the disciplined person stay organized and feel that sense of structure. That'll feed your dragon. If you have routines that energize you or empower you, definitely try to protect them and try to put a rope around them or a box around them so that you can make sure to execute them and keep yourself from getting impacted negatively on those things that energize you. Again, like maybe the workout routine or whatever. When you're on a project with a team, and once the goal is set and there's like some methods being discussed, come in and try to help think about, okay, well, what are the rules? What are the rules of the game that we need to play by? What are the processes we need to adhere to? And you're going to be a natural fit for kind of filtering everybody's decisions through that lens. You're going to be a great compliance partner, if you will. Make sure people don't step into a mud puddle. I would say always get deadlines from people too. Like get deadlines from the different vendors or get ideas so that you can plan ahead of time. Because again, that's a drain, or that's a bad thing for a high discipline person when they don't know deadlines, they don't know schedules. So make sure to always ask. That's a great way to enhance your abilities and your confidence in using your discipline skill. And one other thing, and this is kind of a wild idea, but try to build in some spontaneity into your very planned schedule. Okay, so for example, if you've got a wedding plan and you're a DJ, maybe put a little half hour or 15-minute block on the timeline and say, guests requests play here. Okay, something like that. You're building in, you're engineering some spontaneity or some flexibility that will help you, and I think help others. And you can still drive a lot of your discipline, but you've put a box around it, and I think it'll be effective for you. Next up is focus. Focus folks have this, they can take a direction, they can follow through, and they can make the corrections necessary to stay on track. They prioritize, then act. And I love this. They have positive tunnel vision. Okay. So let's talk about a DJ with an excellent use of focus. Imagine a wedding DJ sitting down and planning their crates and their playlists for a wedding. They will sit down and they will think about, okay, now I'm going to do cocktail hour. Let's think about cocktail hour. Let me see the vibe I want. What did the couple tell me? Yeah. I got these notes. Okay. I'm almost gonna like jump in my brain. I'm gonna focus in on the cocktail hour. I'm gonna be there almost, okay? I'm gonna be there at the venue and I'm gonna be like, okay, here's the vibe I wanna set. Here's the kind of tunes I need to play. Let me get that track. Let me get this track. Oh, what other tracks could I? And I might spend an hour developing and building the playlist for the cocktail hour. And then next, I might wanna change into the dinner hour. Okay, so what kind of vibe? How do I transition into that? What kind of songs? How am I going to build up the energy? How am I connecting with people? All those things take a massive amount of focus and really thought around what are all the variables. So that kind of a person taking that time to really focus in on that, and sometimes getting maybe lost in the event and in the planning, that's a really great use of focus, because they're hopefully not getting lost, but it can drive a better outcome when you're enveloping yourself in that scenario. Now, what about a poor use of focus? Imagine that a DJ is talking to a couple or a client, and they're in a consultation, and they're trying to plan, and they're asking questions. The couple maybe isn't as rigid or isn't as disciplined in their flow and structured, so they're bouncing all around. But the DJ wants to talk about what the DJ wants to talk about. So, guys, tell me about ceremony. Oh, well, we were thinking we could play this song on the dance floor. Guys, ceremony. Tell me about ceremony. And the DJ could probably frustrate the couple or the client with this rigidity or this, no, we're focused on this. Stop going over there. That's a distraction. Let's focus on this. So that'd be like a poor use of focus as a strength. So what are some blind spots for those with focus? Typically, folks with focus are really good with one task at a time. And if they have a lot of things on their plate at the same time, it can be kind of draining for them. It could be a little bit of a blind spot for them. So that's one. Another one would be, imagine that someone with a full-on focus mode could get lost in the details. You could lose hours or days on a task or on a topic because you just kept going and going and going. So I think that focus could definitely have a time component to it, and might be too long. That could be a blind spot. Critical feedback or new input, new data could be left out of the equation because of your focus and your positive tunnel vision. Okay, we called it your blinders. You could ignore some critical stuff that could really help you move forward. So those are some blind spots. So some things that could help you build and strengthen your focus strength would be, if you don't already have a life goal, like that lighthouse I mentioned earlier, if you don't already have that and objectives for yourself, articulate that, write it down, communicate to people. That'll be very helpful for you to help prioritize what you're going to focus on, because you can focus on a lot of different things, but if you have some general goal or some objective, you can always make sure that those things you focus on are aligned with that. Also, break down jobs into their achievable tasks so that you can do mini focus sessions and knock things out, as opposed to a full-on project where it could really suck you in. And that would be a really great way to practice your honing your focus ability. Also, allot time for yourself, and almost make sure that it's a short amount of time. okay? Don't allow for there to be unfettered or time that you could just go and take and take and take. Make sure that you have a boundary on your time so that you can be efficient and effective with your focus time. Also, I think you should volunteer for those clearly defined short cycle tasks. If there's something like, we got to get this done and it's got to take a certain amount of time, jump in on those. You're going to be great. You're going to focus in and get that thing done and help mobilize people to get things done. Next up, we're talking about responsibility. So people strong in responsibility take psychological ownership of what they say they will do. They are committed to stable values such as honesty and loyalty. Accountability is a great word to describe someone with strong responsibility. DJ example of excellence and responsibility might look something like this. In 2020, the pandemic really impacted a lot of different folks. And imagine a wedding couple who unfortunately their venue closed down or had such strong restrictions that the wedding wasn't possible. So unfortunately, the client has to postpone their wedding forward a year. Now the DJ that they had booked with is just not available on the new date. And unfortunately, it's not going to work out. So the DJ with strong responsibility might look like this. They might say, to the new couple, I'm so sorry, this outside factor happened and we didn't even have a plan for it. No one planned for the pandemic, but I'm so sorry I can't help you. However, I'm going to refund your initial payment, your down payment or your initial payment. I'm also going to help you. I've got some DJ friends. I'm going to help you and connect you with somebody who can help do your wedding because I feel really bad that I can't be the one to help you. That's what excellence and responsibility looks like. It's not that there was a clause. No one had a clause in their contract about pandemic and you can get a refund on your initial payment. Nowhere does it say in your contract or had it said in your contract that you had to help the person find another opportunity or find another DJ if your date got, stepped on or canceled. Any case, that's like a responsible kind of high responsibility in action right there, because the DJ felt, hey, I said I was going to do your wedding and I can't do your wedding because of outside factors, but damn it, I'm going to try my best to get you into an awesome celebration and at least give you your initial payment back, because it would bother me if I kept it. That kind of thing. That's high responsibility. A poor use of responsibility would be this. Imagine, if you will, the DJ plays the wrong song as the couple's first dance. They play the wrong song. And immediately the couple looks at the DJ like, wrong song. And the DJ is like, oh, okay. And stops the song on the mic. Everyone, I'm so sorry. That was my mistake. Here's the actual couple's first song. And they push play and they're playing the right song. And the DJ is like, I'm sorry. Okay. Then after the song's over, the DJ runs up, guys, I'm so sorry. And I'm real sorry about that. Later at dinner, oh, you guys okay? I'm so sorry for that blunder before, okay? And at this point, they're like, okay. The DJ is so bothered by this. They wrecked, their accountability, their integrity inside is so wrecked because of what they did, their mistake. They write a letter to the couple after the wedding, and they send it to them along with a check refunding half of their money. And then there's a review by the couple. The couple gives a 5-star review, doesn't even mention the wrong song, just says all the positive things the DJ did. And then the DJ self-outs himself and says, oh yeah, I'm so glad. And I apologize for that mess up on the first dance song. It's like, get over it, dude. Okay, it happened. Water under the bridge. That could be a really negative or bad use of responsibility, if that makes sense. So potential blind spots for people with responsibility, probably over apologizing when something even outside of their control goes wrong or something that they did goes wrong. That could be a blind spot. I think also because you've internalized it so much that you feel like you let other people down, which lets yourself down. So that's a potential blind spot. Saying yes to too many things definitely is a blind spot for people with high responsibility. So you have to really budget what you're going to be able to put your time into. So you cannot say yes to everything. In fact, saying no is very important. Another interesting blind spot for people with responsibility is if you say you're going to do something, you might assume with high responsibility that it's going to get taken care of. No one needs to have status updates or whatever. People should just trust it's going to get done because it's me and I'm going to get it done, right? Well, people do need a little bit of a touch base. They need a little bit of a status update from time to time. So don't let that get in the way of, it's not a trust thing. It's just something that people need to feel secure and confident. So that could be a blind spot for someone with responsibility. Okay, some ways to strengthen responsibility to feed the dragon is build or buy project management tools or software or an app, and that can help you track your commitments to your stakeholders. That's really, really important. And I know that some people might use tasks on their phone or have some other way to track, but just to keep a running tally of those things that you put out there in the world. It'll help you feel more organized and help you feel better that you're living up to your commitments that you've made. You must strengthen this skill by doing less. You have to learn and master the art of saying no. And it doesn't have to be a hard no. You can always do the no, I can't help you, but let me help. Let me see if I can find you help or a referral or something like that. That's perfectly fine. But you definitely want to do that. Also, I feel like responsibility people can sharpen their skill by doing a little bit of under promising and over delivering. Okay. Or maybe even realistic promise. So if someone says, a friend recently asked, this is a real scenario, a friend recently asked me to do a little mix for her daughter. She's in dance competitions and she wanted a little mix for, basically for me to make for them. So I told her, you know what, it's going to be a month and I'll get to it and I'll build it for her. She didn't need it for several months, but I said, hey, I'll do a month. I'll get it to you in a month. And I actually got it done in like 2 weeks. And I just worked on it here and there and I got it done and I gave it to her. It wasn't a super complicated thing. And it didn't take too many hours, but I put a few hours into it and got it to her. So that's adequate promise or under promise, if you will, and over deliver. And I'm not I don't have responsibility in my top 5, but I just think that scenario, I thought of that. That's probably something that a high responsibility person would have a tough time doing. I might say something like, hey, you know what? I'll get that done. I'll get it done this weekend. Well, then I put all kinds of stress when it didn't even need to get done over the weekend. It wasn't needed for a few months. So hopefully that makes sense. And hopefully that helps a little bit if you are strong responsibility. Next up is restorative. And people strong in restorative are adept at dealing with problems. They are good at figuring out what is wrong and resolving it. So this is almost like the opposite or a cousin of the maximizer, because maximizers are going from good to great, and this restorative is going from bad to good. Okay, so let's think of an example with a DJ practicing excellent restorative. One example would be, imagine that a DJ is at an event and all of a sudden one of their speakers just pops and just stops working. No sounds coming from it. So the DJ will immediately, but calmly, go into troubleshooting mode and go into, let's get back to normal mode. Let's get back to where we've got good quality sound coming out. So first, there'll be some troubleshooting. Okay, do I have a signal going to the speaker? Is my cable kinked? Does something come unplugged? Do I have power? All those things. And a good DJ with high restorative will probably start to go through a troubleshooting process in their mind that they've gone through before, perhaps in their garage or at home or whatever, because they've planned for this scenario. They've planned for issues because they're excellent at restorative. They want to get back to the normal operation. So maybe this DJ figures out that, you know what, nothing seems to be wrong with anything coming out of the controller and the mixer and going into the speaker itself. It must be some internal component in the speaker. I don't have time to mess with that right now. So I'm gonna go in my car real quick. I'm gonna put on Africa or something that fits the vibe and that has a long play. I'm gonna run out to my car and I'm gonna grab my backup speaker, which is also my ceremony speaker, let's say, and I'm gonna pop that in and I'm gonna get it going. And right after Africa, I'm gonna get back to my jams, and it's gonna be everything's gonna be restored. So I'm gonna have my sound back again. And then you know what? I'll figure out what's wrong with the speaker later. That's the act of restorative. So that would be an example of excellent use. Now let's talk about poor use. So imagine if you have a scenario where your laptop comes up and says, "Oh my gosh, you need a critical update," and you didn't see this before you got to the event, but right at the event you see a critical update required, and your PC is going to be rebooted or your laptop's going to be restarted here in 30 minutes or so. And you're like, I don't have time to do this. I don't know what's, but you have a restorative mindset. So you're like, okay, that's okay. I've planned for situations like this. Move that primary laptop off to the side and grab your backup laptop, and you're playing music off that. But you're so much in a restorative mindset that you keep checking in on the other main laptop. Once it's booted, it comes back to life. You make sure things are working on it. You bring it over, you swap out with the backup laptop, and it's almost like you created dead air because you were trying to hook up the new the main laptop, and you had the old laptop unplugged, and you created like 15 seconds of dead air, and everybody's like wondering what's going on, and finally you're back up and running. Well, that's a little different than the prior story because the speaker was kind of, the DJ put a box around the speaker, like that's where the problem is, but I'll solve it later. Let's just get back to normal. Let's get back to sound. And the overly restorative person was just so committed to, I gotta get everything back to normal, that they spent time and they actually hurt the event by creating some weird, awkward dead air. Okay, that would be a bad use of high restorative. So what kind of blind spots would you say? I think that blind spots would be some people with high restorative might have the tendency to jump in too quickly to solve a problem when really they need to collect a little more data, or they might jump into a problem and try to solve it themselves when really they should allow others to help come in and solve it. Maybe they should just take on more of a coaching role or point out some observations. It might not be their problem to solve. That could be a blind spot. If you've ever, if you're high restorative and you've ever done that, maybe that rings true. So some things that help with a person with high restorative: give yourself time and permission to study a problem and get to the root cause. That's perfectly normal. That's perfectly good. Just make sure you're giving yourself the time. You need it. And learn tools like Lean Six Sigma. If you can learn these tools and learn different strategies for getting to a problem's root cause quickly, that'll be such an enhancement for you in your life, and it'll really pump up your restorative. Keep a searchable journal. If you're in a business or a career where you have a lot of the issues and you've solved them with your restorative thought process or whatever, make sure to keep a journal and keep it searchable so that you can quickly put your hands on, maybe other people can quickly find FAQs or best practices or quick fixes to things that happen, especially those things that happen often. Also, I think you should sign up for big problems that other people shy away from, because you're going to be able to solve, you're going to be able to figure it out. You're going to be able to solve it. You're going to have the focus and the attention, and you're going to be energized by the journey of trying to figure out what's broken and how do we get it back to normal. So I think hopefully some of those hacks can help you. Guys, next up is analytical. And this is our first strategic thinking theme. And so this is all about analyzing the world around us. So analytical people are strong, people that are strong and analytical search for reasons and causes. They have the ability to think about all the factors that might affect a situation, and they're very logical about how they proceed. An excellent use of analytical would be a DJ who studies music and its effects on people and its impact, and maybe they go a little deeper. Of course, they're going to know all their music in their library. They're going to know, the genre. They're going to know the BPM and those kind of things. But imagine they go a little deeper and they look at danceability and mood and other kind of factors, maybe energy level, how positive the song is, those kind of things. So imagine that DJ taking those metrics and that analysis and applying it and finding some of these songs, these tracks that could really, really work well on the dance floor, but that people maybe overlook or people didn't think about playing. Going really deep, but using those metrics to find those great gems. That would be a way that a DJ could really use analysis, an analytical strength to really bring a better outcome for their clients. A bad use of analytical would be, imagine the same DJ who goes so deep and really understands trends across different, with different artists and with different tracks and, songs and their genesis, and they just really go deep into the analysis of songs, and then maybe they find all kinds of different patterns and really great data, but they don't ever do anything with it. It's just like analysis for nothing. And it's just a bunch of connections they figured out or made, but they actually can't apply it. I think that'd be a negative use of a high analytic skill. Some potential blind spots for the analytical person: you might be labeled a skeptic because you're not going to just trust things on your gut. You're definitely going to need data to feel like something's warranted or proven. You could also, I think, get stuck, as we talked about earlier, in analysis paralysis. You could get stuck in, you're just going into a continuous cycle of trying to go deeper and deeper and find more and more connections. And that could get really bad for you, or bad for a person with high analytical, because you can never get into a position where you can progress and move forward. So that could be definitely a potential blind spot. Some things that could help you if you're high analytical: I think you should develop a list of questions and tools. That will help you. So, for example, when you're trying to figure out something, you're trying to analyze something, that'll help you optimize your analysis process. So what are some tools you use for different problems, or some questions you ask to get to the bottom of it quickly? You might want to take an online course or extra college classes in areas that intrigue you. So, like, let's say if you're into economics, you might want to take an economics course. That'll extend and expand and deepen your ability to analyze different problems and have different tools in your toolkit, because that's really what you'll be energized by, having tools that can be applied to different problems. I think that anybody with analytical should collect and document, or at least make relationships with credible resources. So people or books or websites or whatever it is. Those credible resources will be places where you can go to get the facts, to get real data that you can use when you're doing your analysis. I think also another thing that might be a blind spot, but also a hack, is if you're overly analytical, if you have this in spades, and you're really strong in this, you might come across a little bit of a, you might be a little rude when you're disproving someone, or you're trying to prove a point. You might be a little bit off-putting, and it might destroy some relationships. So I think you should just practice on doing that with some grace, okay? That could really help you, and it could let you look like more of a person you're in the pursuit of truth, and you're trying to help people get there too, and you're not just trying to tear people down with your facts. Okay, next up is context. So people strong in context enjoy thinking about the past. They understand the present by researching its history. Imagine a DJ with this skill, this strength, and using it in an excellent way would be where a DJ is sitting down with a couple and they're planning their wedding. And the DJ looks down at the timeline and notices that there's only 30 minutes for dinner. And the guest count's about 150 people. And the DJ knows from past experience, from living through many weddings, that's just way too short of a time frame. And it's not going to give enough time for things to progress, for people to get their meal, and for speeches and everything to kind of happen. It's just not enough time. So the DJ is going to clue into that, and it's going to present their case to the couple and say, I really think we need a little more time. Here's why. Here's what we want to do. And that will be a very good use of context. A DJ using context poorly would be, imagine a DJ hired to play at a school dance. And the DJ perhaps had been very into school dances and doing school dances years ago and hasn't done one in 5 or 10 years. So as they show up, they're all ready to do this thing, but they're using their context from the past to basically apply to how they're going to do the dance today. So they do a couple things that are faux pas today. Number one, they play old hits, like pop hits. Well, folks today, the kids today, they're going to want to hear things like from TikTok and things that are a little more edgy, and they're not really the Billboard Top 40 hits, okay? Also, maybe they're playing the full song for these tracks because that worked years ago, but not today. Folks really want that short, their short edits, and those 2 minute, it might even be too long for a song. So you can't use context and history only. You have to be able to adapt and move forward in time. So that'd be like a negative use of context. Potential blind spots for context: you might be labeled as living in the past or being an old curmudgeon. Thinking of the past too fondly. You might also give too much credence or voice to the failures of the past, so much so that it stops progress. You really, you might be too vocal with, oh yeah, well, we tried that last time, it didn't work. Oh, I tried that too, it didn't work. That'll never work because it didn't work that time. That could sometimes be annoying and could be a blind spot for you. Some things to help hack to kind of build your context here would be things like research history, books, podcasts, videos, YouTube videos, Netflix, documentaries, whatever. Get your hands on all the material you can. That will be learning and soaking that up, and also talking to people about the past. That'll be fuel for you, and it will really energize you. Think about collecting proven and time-tested blueprints or best practices, case studies, or whatnot for your industry or wherever you work, because those things are those are tools for you to help figure out how to move forward, because it studies the past, and you have short either stories, or you have that wisdom, those nuggets that can help you have a better outcome. So collect those things. Also, I think you should give yourself time for critical thinking, because reflecting on the past and bringing those ideas forward, you really need to have some time, and it might take some research too to really develop a fully formed idea. All right, next up is futuristic. People strong and futuristic are inspired by the future and what could be. They inspire others with their visions of the future. And I think a cool example of a DJ practicing excellence would be something like this. Imagine the DJ who has an idea, and they figure that, in the future, we could probably have a little more interaction with virtual reality and what's been called the metaverse now. And with a tool like Matterport, which is a 3D scanning tool of space, imagine if I, as a DJ, could have access to 3D scans of every single venue that I could play at. And when I'm meeting with my couples, I could even almost like say, hey guys, put on this 3D headset or whatever, and let's look at the space, and hey, here's where I'll be over in the corner. Is that where you want me? Oh, you want me to, let's move you? Okay, let's move over here. All those kind of things that could happen with an interactive, three-dimensional kind of immersive experience. Those kind of things that a DJ could easily think about, and maybe this DJ is actually trying to make it happen. And it might be a little clunky or whatever, but they're trying to pull it together, build some partnerships, talk to the venues about doing 3D scans in their spaces, that kind of thing. That'd be a futuristic thinker, someone trying to bring a vision to life and try to engage their clients into that. That'd be a cool use and an excellent use of futuristic. Okay, so some blind spots for futuristic people might be, you might be accused of having your head in the clouds, or, always thinking way down the road and never thinking of the now. You might have heard that. If you're high futuristic, you might hear that. Also, if you have a negative view of the future, like dystopian or whatever, that can impact you negatively by almost a progressive way. Like maybe first you're just you like to think of, oh, we're going to have a bad scenario in the future, so I'm going to collect all these things. And all of a sudden you're like a hoarder and you've got like all kinds of stockpiles of stuff. So that could maybe be a blind spot for you. Some ideas on how to strengthen your futuristic: feed your imagination by reading future forecast oriented books. Okay, things like fiction, nonfiction, things that imagine a future that might be real and based in fact, or might be completely fiction. Those kind of things will just fuel your ideas. And if you watch documentaries and those kind of things about the future, that'll energize you and help develop your strength even more. I think you could, a good tool to use for if you're futuristic is this idea of future headlines. And a future headline exercise is basically where you envision a future state. And you can do this on any timeline. You could say, hey, 10 years from now, or maybe just next year, what's a future headline look like? Kevin is now the best DJ in Ohio. Okay, whatever. That'd be a future state headline 2 years from now. And then you write the article below the headline. What got Kevin from here today? It's 2021. What got Kevin from here to there, to that future headline? And you write it as if you're from the future writing of the story. That's such a great tool for a futuristic oriented person. And it really helps build a pathway from here to your envisioned future. Okay. Also, I think you should find a friend who's really good and strong in strategic thinking themes, like futuristic as well, because you'll connect with them, you'll discuss your ideas about the future, and they'll help you develop them and even think deeper into those concepts that you've come up with. So that can be a real plus and a real growth opportunity for you as well. All right, next up is ideation, and this is one of my top 5, so very familiar with this one. And essentially, people strong in ideation are fascinated by ideas. They are able to find connections between seemingly disparate phenomena. I love this one. I embody it. I love it. I call it the popcorn popping theme because I'm just always having ideas and always thinking thoughts. A good use in terms of a DJ would be, imagine a couple that's planning a wedding with a DJ, and they say, hey, you know what? We're not really sure what intro song we should have for the grand entrance. What do you think? Or what's popular or whatever. The DJ is going to immediately think with strong ideation. They're going to, of course, draw upon the old classics, the things that they've seen work well, but they're also going to bring in other input as they form their ideas. So things that the couple's already said about their genre preferences and, what's their age and all the information that the couple has said so far. The ideator engine's going to go off, the popcorn popper, and the DJ's going to be thinking of left and right, and that'll hopefully, give the couple a lot of great ideas to pick from. A bad use of ideation, so where ideation is used negatively, would probably be a scenario where, imagine the DJ who is so thoughtful and enamored with different activities that can enhance their experience for their couples and for their clients. So imagine the idea of having a new booth, a new DJ booth, the idea of having a better light show, the idea of having different games and activities and things just inundate the DJ, and they're always thinking of different ideas. And behind them is let's say a list or whole bench of half-finished projects, half-realized ideas, and things that they can never finish the play because they're always thinking of new things. That would be a bad use of ideation or overuse of ideation. So some of the potential blind spots for an ideation person, they're always looking for connections. Ideation people are always looking for connections, but sometimes you'll give credence to a very loose link where it's not really a great idea. It's not a great profound connection. It's just kind of loose, but you might have a blind spot because it's your baby. It's your idea that came up. I think effective ideators will If they sense that there's a problem, they will just move on. Okay, they will, this idea, they will not hold on and die on the hill for it. They'll move on to the next idea because there'll be plenty more where that came from. Also, as we just discussed, one blind spot for an ideation person might be the inability to finish the plan an idea, because a new idea will spark and take your attention. What are some hacks on how you can strengthen ideation? First, give yourself time to explore lots of topics, okay? Give yourself that ability to fuel your curiosity and also to finish and experiment with your creative creations. Schedule time if you must to kind of have time to just live in your strategic thinking zone and play with those ideas, okay? I think you should create idea storyboards or use tools like mind maps where you can take ideas and build them out so that you can have some sort of way to chronicle or document some of the great ideas that you come up with. If you get bored quickly, you probably do if you're an ideation person. So find ways to stimulate yourself, especially in repetitive tasks. So just an idea, play mind games with yourself a little bit. Like, let's say you were folding laundry and you're kind of bored with it. Think like, how would you fold laundry in space with no gravity? If you had no gravity right now, how would you how would you make it work? And it's just those little games that help keep yourself engaged and keep that popcorn popper kind of going and keep it sharp. All right, next up is input. Okay, so people strong in the input theme have a craving to know more. They often like collecting and archiving all kinds of information. They're curious and they are collectors. Okay, so a DJ with an excellent use of input would look something like this. Imagine a DJ is planning a wedding with a couple and they're sitting down, they're talking about things like, what are your favorite genres? What song should we play during your cake cutting? Those kind of typical questions. But they go a little deeper and they ask questions like, do you have any TV shows or movies that were just so important to you as a child or that you guys grew up with that you really connected with? Those kind of things that could give the DJ insight into some nuggets that they could maybe drop at dinner time. Maybe they could, hey, if you really liked Harry Potter, maybe you would really like this kind of music, whatever. Some connections maybe that you can make by asking those deeper questions. That would be an excellent use of input. Now, a bad use of input would be, let's say that the DJ has crossed over into hoarder status by collecting every song they can get their hands on. Every track, every flavor of the track, every remix, every short edits, DJ edits, radio plays, acapellas, they've got it all for every track they can get their hands on. They've got a 400,000 plus song library. And because of hoarding and because they have so much, they have a really tough time sorting through all the clutter and finding the right tracks to play. So it's almost like through the act of collecting and bringing all of that stuff into your life, it actually makes it difficult for you to be effective because you've got too much in the way. Okay, so some potential blind spots for people with input. Sometimes data could be stuck in your mind and be hard to update, or input that you collected or learned a long time ago could get outdated, and you have to be careful. That's a blind spot for someone with input sometimes. Also, another potential blind spot is you might be so enamored with the factoid or something that you learned that you dismiss the credibility of the source. Like you're not really sure or you don't care. It's more about the novelty of the idea. So that could be a blind spot as well. And as we talked about, sometimes input folks are collectors and they can turn into hoarders. Some hacks, if you have input, to improve. Give yourself lots of time to research topics and collect your facts and information. Use credible books, videos, podcasts, the latest news, talking with experts and SMEs, subject matter experts, etc. So collect those facts, but make sure you're using credible sources. You might use a system or a tool like a database or electronic notebook or Microsoft Notes or something to collect things you learn, interesting facts, things that you're studying or learning. That can be really helpful to be leveraged and referenced later. Also, if you're a collector of things, index them well and have an effective storage mechanism for your things, okay? And certainly that will help you know what you have an inventory of it, and maybe it'll stave off some of that hoarding behavior. Next up is intellection. Intellection people, strong with this theme, are characterized by their intellectual activity. They are introspective and appreciate intellectual discussions. They are thinkers. A DJ with high intellection, in terms of using it in an excellent way, would really be the full package. Think about all the information we get from a client as a DJ, getting all that information, getting information from the venue and other vendors, thinking about the entire event, really sitting down and thinking and musing over all the potential failure scenarios, all the potential positives and outcomes that could happen, and really kind of deriving some very introspective type of things or some ideas that could really enhance the event. Think about the person just sitting in their chair, thinking about all the components and all the potential outcomes, and really finding the best thread that will leave the couple with the client with a super great experience. That would be someone who is very intellectual, someone who's taken all the input around them, really thinking through all the potential outcomes and really thinking through the best possible flow for the client. That'd be a really great example of excellent use of intellection. Now, on the poor use of intellection side, imagine and kind of a different thing. I've been thinking about updating my business card because recently I've done I've created a new logo for my DJ business. So think of the business card, and someone who has high intellection would think, I need to have all the information on this business card that I can fit because I want everyone to know all about my services, all the contact information. They got to know my Facebook, my Instagram, my Snapchat, my TikTok, my YouTube. They got to know all my socials. They got to know my business number, my cell phone number, all this stuff. And I just packed that business card, that little bitty square rectangle piece of real estate with so much information because I'm naturally thinking of all this information and I want everybody to know all this information. And you just way overcrowd it. And when you have something that's overcrowded like that, it becomes pretty useless because it's just too hard for people to sift through and really find what they need. And they're not going to hold on to that business card. They're not going to, it's going to be tough. So in any case, that might be an example of someone using intellection to a bad way. So some potential blind spots, you may almost become a loner in the way that you're too involved in that thinking cycle and you're too in your head. You're too always mulling things over, and that could push away some of the social connections that you might otherwise have. And while you're processing and doing your thinking, some might label you as aloof or disconnected, disengaged, that kind of thing. But really, you're thinking about the problem and you're trying to figure out the best possible outcomes. So that could be a blind spot. Some things to help you strengthen your intellection is, of course, anything that helps sharpen your mind. So any mind games or meditation, those kind of things are always great. Give yourself time to think critically too. Give yourself plenty of time. Schedule time if you must, but to have time to think critically, focus, and reflect on items, that's really great for you. You will be energized by writing or blogging or putting your observations and thoughts out into the world. That will energize you. So find a way to do that. Share your observations and conclusions with others, even if not asked, because you putting that out there could help them for sure. And also, again, it really connects with who you are personally. You like to think about things, and if you put them out there, it'll help you only develop them more articulately and better when you put them out into the world. Also, stay sharp, as we mentioned, mind puzzles, tests, challenging mental games, whatever, and befriend other big thinkers. Wherever you can get into a circle and share ideas and talk with people, that's going to be really powerful and motivating for you. Okay, next up is learner. Learner is actually the theme where you have a great desire to learn and want to continuously improve. In particular, the process of learning rather than the outcome excites them. Input's a little bit more about what's the outcome or what am I getting? What am I learning? What's the nugget? the learner strength is more about the learning adventure. So let's talk a little bit about an example of a DJ using a learner to an excellent way. And this is easy, I think, as an example that the DJ would just be a student of music, constantly learning about the origins of music. And imagine if she understood where music came from, the different styles and subgenres and regional genres, and she just had this depth of knowledge and this unsatiable appetite to know more and more and more about music and where it came from and where it derived. That could be super helpful for the DJ as she plays music for different crowds, and she picks up on, well, maybe this group loves jazz, but I think I found out that I remember there's this flavor of jazz that's really obscure and it's just played in Northern Kentucky or whatever, I don't know. And we're in Northern Kentucky. Let me try that out. Oh, I bet that'll connect with them. And those kind of things that really will give an extra dimension to the DJ's performance and experience for the couple or the client. So I think that kind of learning really can benefit the DJ and all of her clients. But a negative way of learning, or negative, high learner activity or behavior could be this. Maybe the DJ picks up on that subgenre of jazz that's just in Northern Kentucky, and she goes deep and she reads everything she can about it. She watches videos. She goes so deep into it that she looks up and, oh my gosh, I've just pulled an all-nighter jumping into this deep, deep, deep well of jazz. And you know what? I can't do anything with that. I've got all this knowledge now and I've consumed myself, but it's really not a practical way to, there's not a practical application for all this new knowledge I gained for this tiny subgenre of Kentucky jazz, okay? So, any case, that could be a negative behavior. Blind spots for a learner, you could definitely lose time by going too deep down a well, trying to learn as much as you can and trying to learn about a topic that is almost impractical and you can't really do anything with the information. And that's okay. That could just be something that you want to do because you're a high learner, but just remember that could be a blind spot. Also, if you're going so deep and you learn a lot, remember that it's very difficult to become a full subject matter expert in a topic. And I think some people with learner, they learn enough and then they speak from a position of that they're an expert when they're really not. They haven't really, lived with the topic or assimilated all the information available. And that could be a little off-putting. That could be a blind spot for a high learner. So some ways to help build upon learner: develop yourself by enrolling in continuing education programs. Like, just give yourself that focused learning and you'll really soar. You'll really love it. You'll likely more passionate about the journey. Like we talked about, you're happier about the taking the classes part than the outcome, the degree or whatever. So you don't even need to be in a degree program. Just take some courses. And I think you'll like the continuing ed at schools or online because you'll have other people learning with you and there'll be sort of a curriculum, a stair-step way. And you can go deep whenever you want to, but there'll be some people and some structure to keep you on track on your learning goals. Also, I think that you could find ways to track your learning competence, okay? So you'll feel energized as you grow. So if you figure out ways to measure that learning, you'll be energized by that. I think you can find work, in your job or even clubs that provide a platform for continual learning. And that's really going to energize you too. So lean into those opportunities. That will help you grow. And finally, for our strategic thinking theme domain is the strength of strategic. People strong and strategic create best and alternative ways to proceed. Faced with any given scenario, they can quickly spot the relevant patterns, obstacles, and issues. So strategic is a really cool theme to talk through. And I think as a DJ, if you had to think of an example of excellent use of strategic, you could think about this scenario. Imagine that the DJ is talking to a client and the client is just very concerned about all the possible failure points, okay? Like, a DJ, what happens if your car breaks down on the way to the event on the night? What happens if you get a very sick, a sickness and you just can't come? What happens if your speaker dies and whatever the scenarios? The DJ that has high strategic will be very comfortable in this scenario and in this conversation, and will be very happy to say, well, we've got plans in place for that. And because I've thought through this hundreds of times and I've got lots of different ideas about backing up. And here's my plan for scenario A, scenario B, scenario C. And here's the best way that I'm going to make sure that you get the service that you need for your awesome celebration. That whole thought process has been played through the mind of a high strategic person already. So it's easy to talk about. That'd be an excellent use. So what about the poor use of strategic? I think of it like maybe over preparing or thinking too much. So imagine the scenario we just talked about, but instead the DJ has designed systems and they have backup upon backup upon backup. And they have so many scenarios that they think they can combat, but they have multiple solutions on top of solutions. When something actually goes wrong, they go and they have to find that one cable because that one cable does this one thing. Or, I think you could go, kind of a little crazy trying to remember which backup goes with which scenario and where's that cable even at. That could actually prevent the solution from being presented quickly, or maybe even it could make it suboptimal. Like, it took them 30 minutes when it could have took them 5 minutes. That might be an overuse of the high strategic planning. So some potential blind spots for a strategic thinker are that you see connections and you see how the pieces fit together and the right patterns. You see them much faster than others. So you have to take some time sometimes. Instead of just jumping to the conclusion and trying to live in the strategy, you have to take a step back and help people get there with you. That could be a blind spot, I think, for people with a strategic mind. They jump forward too fast and they don't take people with them. Also, I think that some people could view you as a naysayer or think that you might be, trying to not move forward because you've seen obstacles, you've seen problems in maybe the way you're proceeding and you need to find an alternative route. So maybe that'd be a blind spot as well. So some things to help you if you're high strategic and you want to build upon it. Give yourself time to think about your goals and your vision, because if you have time and you have runway to think about whatever the next step is, whatever the vision is, you're going to be able to think through those patterns and those scenarios and those obstacles that just really this is fuel for you. You can derive a lot of insight and a lot of help for your team or for yourself if you have time to think through those things. So definitely give yourself time to fully develop that strategic plan that you're going to build in your head, and then document it, put it down on paper, or put it into a tool, and use tools that could help you kind of map out the destination and all the critical milestones that get you to that destination. You should partner with other strategic thinkers too. I think I envision a lot of these strategic thinking themes to be interplaying with one another, because you need your ideators, you need your futuristic, you need other folks to kind of work through some of the ideas with you. And as an idea, just build a knowledge club or a discussion group or like a think tank. It was the old term for it, but just, build a little group that you can get together with these strategic thinkers and really explore ideas. Also, pay particular attention to articulating the immediate next steps forward, because you're seeing the strategy and you're seeing the future or the destination and all the steps in between. Articulate that very next step for people, and that'll just help them get on the road and feel confident that you have the ability to see where we're going and the steps forward to get there. Next up is a relationship building domain, and that's the building connection with others. And our first theme here is adaptability. Adaptability is people strong in this theme prefer to go with the flow. They tend to be now people who take things as they come and discover the future one day at a time. All right, so adaptability, the flexible strength here. And this is such a good one. Here's a good example of a DJ using this in an excellent fashion. Imagine someone critical to the wedding, at a wedding event, falls ill, and they have to be taken to the hospital. So the DJ, of course, could handle that in a lot of different ways. But what they choose to do, because they're very strong in adaptability, they choose to make sure that all the guests know what's going on with the critical person, the VIP who is fallen ill. They make sure to give updates, and they don't go over the top like somber with the mood, and they try to keep a mostly upbeat vibe, but they definitely are giving the situation reverence, and they're making an adjustment. They're being adapted. They're adaptable to what's just happened. And then they even get out their iPad and they do a quick FaceTime with the person in the hospital because they're doing okay, they're stable and they're fine. And they do a little impromptu FaceTime session with them at the hospital so that everybody can see they're okay and everybody can get back into the party spirit of the celebration. That would be a highly adaptable, none of that was planned, but the DJ was able to roll with the punches and really create the best outcome possible. By the way, our guest in our hypothetical scenario is just doing fine. They're okay. Okay, so let's talk about a overuse or negative use of the adaptability strength. A DJ who's a little too strong in adaptability might make the fallacy of not planning much or playing very loosely and feeling like that they'll just fall into the wedding or the event and they'll just make it happen and they don't need to do so much planning. They don't even make a playlist. They just say, they think that they'll be fine with a few notes scribbled down. Okay, so obviously that's bad because you're going to miss opportunities. You're going to, you might be very good in the flow of things, but you might even miss critical activities or you might miss special things in the timeline because you were caught up in the moment, trying to find that right song or trying to deal with something that you could have planned, but you didn't. You thought you'd do it real time and you miss something critical. So that would probably be a bad use of over adaptability. Potential blind spots would be along those lines of you don't give enough credence or enough value to organization and planning. Structured tasks could be kind of tough for you because, again, you want to go with the flow. You don't like to be boxed in. So that could be kind of a blind spot for you. Also, some folks might seek to take advantage of your adaptability. If you're highly adaptable, people might take advantage of that and just, she's fine. She'll get on board with whatever, and they'll kind of maybe mistreat you in that way. So that could be a blind spot too. Some ways to hack or build and feed your dragon on adaptability strengths would be seek roles or opportunity where responding to the unpredictable is essential. Customer service rep, firefighter, hospital triage, those kind of things will be great for you as a job. Ensure your work is short-term in nature because long projects will probably drain you, okay, as a highly adaptive person. Step up in times of need or change or crisis. You will have the ability to react quickly and help give other people some help and create those short-term necessary relationships and direction to help people get through it. All right, next up is connectedness. People strong with connectedness have faith in the links between all things. They believe that there are few coincidences and that almost every event has a reason. So this is a cool causal type of strength. A great DJ in connectedness might realize the crucial connections with different vendors and venues in your industry, in your local market. It's crucial, it's critical to have those connections. And a DJ will realize that and will foster those connections and make sure, because there's a link between myself as a DJ and a photographer that I really like, that link, I want to strengthen that because I know that that link is so important, not only to when we're working together, but things like perhaps referrals and other things. So it's very important to someone with high connectedness to maintain and strengthen those connections that are so important. I think a use of connectedness in a bad way might be something like the DJ has a really strong feeling or connection with certain political issues or social issues, or maybe even we have some of our musicians and artists have some, some bad dealings, or they've been caught up in some bad controversy. And maybe the DJ decides, even though the couple wants to hear some Michael Jackson, he's been mired in some issues, so I don't want to play Michael Jackson, so I'm not going to play him. And I go against the couple's wishes by not doing that. And that could be, I think, a little bit of negative use of connectedness if you're overreaching or you're kind of going into that realm. And along those lines, as a potential blind spot, some might label you as having too much of a black and white kind of mindset when you're a connectedness type person. You might put those connections out there as truths, so much so that you alienate or turn off other people. That could be a blind spot too. So some ways to strengthen your connectedness and to really pull it forward would be find opportunities and roles where you can connect with people in your community, your company, your industry, so you can understand perspectives and understand the links between things a little bit better. That'll really give you something you crave, understanding those links. Practice collecting stories that explain connections you see in the world around you. I think gathering analytic tools as well that can help you quickly discover causal effects. Like, for example, there's a great Lean Six Sigma tool called the FMEA, Failure Modes Effects Analysis. That's a great tool to help you figure out connections and causal effects. Okay, next up is Developer. Developer, essentially this theme recognizes and cultivates the potential in others. They spot signs of each small improvement and derive satisfaction from these improvements. A developer could also be known as a mentor. Okay, so an example of this in practice in the DJ world would be, imagine a DJ who runs a multi-op, okay? And they have a company of other DJs, and they are very focused on growing each DJ, not just improving everybody, but growing each person where they are and moving to that next step. So you might have a very new DJ just coming into the profession, and they have lots to learn about how to be on the mic, how to program music, how to do good planning sessions with their clients, etc. And then you might have another very seasoned DJ who's trying to learn something like how to scratch or how to do a better light show or whatever. So a developer mindset at a multi-op, a DJ would be very in tune with the individual goals of each of their people and how to get to that next step and help them celebrate the successes as they climb the ladder on their individual learning journeys. So in a bad way, developer could be used to prescribe goals to different people. So if I have a goal for my DJs in the multi-op situation, I might prescribe, I want you to do this now, I want you to do that. And there's almost like an externality. So the DJ themselves are not motivated internally and intrinsically to get to that next level. They're being told to move forward. Also, I think that a developer with too much developer might fall into a micromanagement kind of way. So they might be too much of a hawk, too much of a helicopter manager, watching every move and trying to make sure that they're seeing development and they're seeing motion in a positive way, which can actually turn into a negative. So along those lines, one of the blind spots, I guess you could say, for that is, you want to be careful with not being too prescriptive with your development. You want it to be a thing you're doing together. So that could be a blind spot where you're just giving too much advice, too much of a micromanager, if you will. Also, a potential blind spot could be you might overcommit to the number of people you're helping because you love to help people as a developer, but you might just overcommit, and therefore you won't have the bandwidth to really help in a meaningful way all the people you've committed to. So that could be another blind spot. Okay, some ways to improve your developer. Find opportunities and roles to unleash your natural abilities as a teacher or a coach. That could be in a profession, a personal setting, that could be in a sport, anything like that. Help others see their potential and collect tools to help them, such as CliftonStrengths Finder. This is such a great tool to help that mission. You derive energy from others when they learn and grow. When others learn and grow, you are energized by that. So find ways to detect this and check in with your stakeholders and your students often. Like, you want to know when they're moving up that learning journey, up that learning ladder. So you want to do that. Also, keep a list of things that you have helped grow or people you've helped succeed. This will remind you of all the great things you've done as a almost like the superpower and the effect that you've had and the impact you've had on the world around you. Next up is empathy. And people strong in this theme can sense the feelings of other people by imagining themselves in others' lives or other situations. So this is a really powerful relationship theme. And a DJ who uses empathy in an excellent way could look like this. Imagine that you have a DJ doing a wedding and they're talking with the couple and there's so much almost in the shoes of the couple, and they're thinking about their wedding day, they're thinking about their perspective. The questions they ask, even though the tone they use, the introspection that will be heard through the conversation, the couple's going to know that this DJ really has their best interests at heart. And that's going to make it such a more meaningful, it's going to be a better vendor relationship for sure, but it's going to be such a more meaningful event for the couple to have such an invested vendor in their day, in their special day, in their special celebration. So that's how I think it could be used in a great way. I think that in a poor sense, maybe your empathy turns a little bit into an emotional roller coaster. So you're so in tune with your wedding guests, once the day has arrived, and you're so much caught up in it. Maybe you're watching the ceremony and you start crying because you see the mother, you see the mother crying and you're crying, and then maybe you get choked up at the first dance because you see the fathers kind of getting choked up, and that could actually hurt your ability to perform. Maybe you get choked up on the microphone, or you're like, oh, I need a moment, folks. I mean, that could be a little bit off-putting and maybe a little bit too empathetic. I think that could maybe be a negative use. So some potential blind spots for empathy. If your empathy gives way or falls into sympathy, which AKA like a pity kind of way, that could become, you could become too invested, okay? Like we talked about in the earlier scenario, and maybe you'd be labeled as a bleeding heart. That could be a blind spot as well if you have this empathy that comes out all the time. Also, potential blind spot, you might feel stuck or frozen for fear of hurting someone's feelings, because you have so much empathetic thought for that person. And that could be a bad thing. Sometimes you need to rip the Band-Aid off and you need to move forward. And that might actually be the best thing for a person versus being frozen or stuck without action. Okay, so some ideas that help strengthen your empathy would be serving a role as a confidant or a mentor in your career or in a personal group, okay? Be that person that people can go to because they'll naturally trust you and you'll be able to help them. You have an innate ability to detect when a person is struggling or experiencing a negative emotion. You should reach out to those people who you detect that, and reach out and be that helpful hand or that mentor that can really help them move through their situation. Collect and document insightful questions or tactics that draw out words to describe what others are feeling. Feelings are hard to put into words, and if you find ways that, a good question perhaps, or some good words that describe things, you should jot them down or collect them for yourself, because they'll be a great tool set for you to use. Also, you have a great lens to the customer experience. You can think like a customer for your business or whatever. So use that and put that into play. Maybe offer that up in your team at work. Okay, next up is harmony. So people with harmony will look for consensus, and they don't enjoy conflict. Rather, they seek areas of agreement so that people can reach a common good. So imagine at a wedding where a DJ would practice harmony in an excellent way. You have the harmony of all the vendors coming together, the DJ maybe in the center, or maybe they're another spoke around the wheel. But in any case, they're bringing everybody together and making sure everybody's on the same page. If there's a discrepancy, they call it out, and in a very healthy way, work toward harmony so everyone knows this is how we're going to proceed, this is how things are going to go forward. That would be an excellent way that a mobile DJ or a wedding DJ could use their strength of harmony. On a negative side, though, imagine the same scenario, and perhaps you have an impasse, okay? You have the photographer wants this, the wedding coordinator wants that, and or the venue staff wants something else. And you're trying to play middleman, you're trying to find that consensus, but you're just at an impasse, they're not going to agree. So perhaps you go way too long trying to, well, what about this? And you're trying to troubleshoot and you just can't make it work, where really what the situation calls for is someone just make a decision and then rally behind it. And someone might not feel like they won, but I think there's a point in time where you have to make the call for the sake of the event, right? Not everybody can always get everybody's way, or not every time is there one consensus idea that everyone can rally around. So that could be an example of a poor use of harmony. A couple blind spots for harmony: you could be conflict averse because you don't want to get in and you just don't want to have the argument, so you try to stay away from conflict where it might be healthy conflict and necessary conflict. So that could be a blind spot. Also, people might take advantage of your harmonious nature, or your willingness and struggle to always seek consensus. People might take advantage of that and do things like filibuster and just talk, or maybe positioning things, always trying to get their way with you because they know that you're going to try to seek a consensus and they want to give you all of their reasons why you should come to their side, or their reason should be the consensus. You could also be a little bit prone to passive aggressive behavior a little bit here, because you don't want to lead with that conflict, and you kind of want to do things on the side. In some cases, that could just be sometimes a blind spot. So some ideas on how to get stronger in harmony: get to know the people in your circle, who you're going to be working with, their perspectives, their goals. That can be valuable and invaluable, really, information for you as you try to figure out consensus and find that common ground that everybody can rally around. The more you know, the more you can make connections. And by way of your inclusive style, you should really ensure everybody is heard on the topic. So that's something that you can definitely use to sharpen your tool set there in your harmony, because you're making sure everybody's heard, everybody's opinions out there, and listen for those common ground nuggets, those things where the circles overlap in the Venn diagram and you can find that consensus. Okay, next up is includer. People strong with includer are accepting of others. They show awareness of those who feel left out, and they make an effort to include them. They involve more people and resources. It's a little bit of a contrast to the consistency theme we talked about a little earlier. So here's an example of includer and an excellent use of it. So imagine that there is a DJ and they're doing an event and it's going well, but they notice that there's a table of some folks that are just kind of chilling. They don't come up to dance. They just seem to be kind of like hanging out and like watching the clock, so to speak. So the DJ kind of goes over and, hey, just chats them up a little bit. Hey, are you guys having a good time? How are things going? And the DJ finds out that this group really wants to get on the dance floor, but they're just big. They're not really big hip hop fans or pop fans. The music that's been being played, they really would love some alternative rock. Okay, some Fall Out Boy, some Blink-182, and they hear that. The DJ takes that back to the booth, and you know what? They go ahead and they sprinkle in a little bit of the more poppy alternative rock, and that group gets included in the event, and they get up out of their table and they're excited. And that right there just engaged that whole table of folks who might have just left early or whatever and not really had a great time. So that's a very positive use of an includer strength. Here's a poor use or an overuse of includer. Imagine that a same kind of scenario. There's a wedding and the DJ is told by the couple, do not play country music. We just don't like country music. So then in come a woman and a man, and they have a cowboy hat on and cowboy boots, and they're dressed up like, like a stereotypical person that might like country music. And they come into the event, and the DJ is compelled to reach out and play something for them. So the DJ drops a country tune, even though the couple didn't even want didn't want that to happen at their wedding. But guess what? The high includer DJ just couldn't help themselves. They wanted that person or that couple to feel engaged at the wedding. So that would be a bad use of includer. So some potential blind spots for includer: you might have trouble relating to people that have disproportionate power. And what I mean by that is if someone is anointed some power, like they have some big office, or some big title or something like that, you might have trouble getting along with that person, or at least giving them undue respect or just blind respect, because you feel that everybody should be included and everybody's on par. You may also have a hard time giving hard news to people because you don't want to hurt their feelings, and you feel like that wouldn't be very good to give them hard news. So those are some potential blind spots maybe for includer. So some things to help strengthen your includer would include things like, here's some ideas. Find opportunities to speak up for people who need to be heard. That's the natural inclination you're going to have for an includer. But find a way that you can bring their input and their voice to the table so that people can be heard. And just inherently that diverse perspectives can help strengthen any outcome. Okay. Also, help new people in your company with onboarding. Okay. You will naturally include them, of course, but if you can help them onboard into your group or your company or whatever, if they're a new DJ in your DJ company, help onboard them. This will help them fast track to feel like part of the team, but also it'll help them move toward productivity. Okay. It'll help them get productive quicker. If you have a large group and there's an argument or something like that breaking out, start with the similarities and try to find that common ground, kind of like the harmony we talked about, but you're going to be able to listen to each of the voices and make sure that everybody's heard and bring them into the conversation. But to strengthen this, look for common ground. People want to feel like a part of something, even if they have a diverse perspective. All right, next up is individualization. And people strong in this theme are intrigued with the unique qualities of each person. They have a gift for figuring out how people who are different can work together productively. Sounds a little like our prior strength of includer, but it's a little different, and I'll show you why. So basically, imagine an example of a DJ using this in an excellent way, being something like this. The DJ is talking with a couple as they're planning a wedding, and the DJ finds out that the bride is very, very comfortable in the spotlight, very, excited to have all eyes on her. The groom, not so much. He's actually a little shy, reserved, doesn't want the spotlight. So the couple wants to do a bouquet toss and a garter removal and toss. And when it comes to that part in the evening, the DJ gives a lot of fanfare for the bouquet toss, okay? All right, all the single ladies come up here and let's make sure we've got everybody out here. Okay, Becky, do we have everybody? Oh, Becky's calling out so-and-so. Hey, let's keep going. Okay, and a lot of fanfare. You guys get the idea. Well, when it's time to do garter, it's a much more reserved kind of thing. There's no, hey, Bill, what do you want to say on the mic or whatever? You're not putting the mic in front of his face, okay? You're not putting all the fanfare, and maybe even the tone is a little different when you're doing the garter. It's still exciting. You're still bringing up the single guys and doing all the stuff, but what you're doing is you're individualizing. You're focusing on the individual nature of the two people in front of you, and you're giving them a little different treatment based on that. So that would be an excellent use of individualization. So a poor use of individualization would be something like this. Imagine a DJ getting requests at an event, and every request that as soon as a person comes up, the DJ feels compelled because, hey, this is this person's individual experience. I respect that person. I want them to have a great time. And they want to hear this, so I'm going to play it next. I'm going to play whatever they told me, I'll play it next. And then the next person comes up and they want something completely different genre, different vibe, everything. The DJ says, that individual person, I respect them and I want to play whatever they want to play next. So essentially the DJ turns into a shuffle mode, and it just creates a horrible scenario and a bad experience for everybody. That'd be a bad use of individualization. So along those lines, a potential blind spot for an individualization could be where it's really hard for you to make general assumptions for large groups, which usually is a good thing. It's usually not good to profile or to use assumptions or stereotypes. But for a wedding or an event, sometimes you kind of have to go with, okay, what is going to be good for the gander, not just each individual goose, okay? You need to make some of those calls, and that could be a blind spot for folks. And it might be hard for you to find patterns in data or in groups of people because you're so focused on the individual data point or the individual person. It's hard to find patterns. So that could be a blind spot for you as well. Okay, some ways to strengthen individualization and make it even better would be keep an electronic notebook or Microsoft Notes or notes in your phone, in your contacts, of those little things that help people stand out for you. Those little things, those little facts like their birthday, their passions, their strengths. Find those little things and make a note of them so that you have them at the ready and you can give that person that individual attention that can really speak directly to them using their individual traits. Determine what people around you do best and then empower them to do more of it. That is such a cool thing that you will do if you're individualization, you will be able to do very easily, and you'll do, and that'll just that will empower them to be their best. All right, everybody, positivity is next, and this is another one of my top 5. This is people with strong positivity have an enthusiasm that is contagious. They are upbeat and can get others excited about what they are going to do. I love this theme, and I love that I have it as a top one because it is everything this says. It feels contagious. I know that it's a positive force in my life and those around me. As a DJ, I use it a lot to inspire and instill a sense of positive vibes around the event that I'm doing. And I think that's been a very good thing for me. An excellent use of positivity could be with the 2020 pandemic. A lot of brides and grooms for weddings were impacted, and they couldn't have the kind of celebration that they thought they wanted. So we had mask mandates, and we had distancing, and we had impacts to buffet lines and things like this. So really, even dancing might have been outlawed in some places. So think about that from a couple's perspective. That's got to be tough and probably disheartening. And I think that a positivity, strong DJ would be able to talk about the fact that, hey, look, yes, there are some things that are different. Okay, I'm not sugarcoating it. It's there's restrictions we have to live with, but we're still celebrating your union. We're still getting together, your families, and they're going to be together for the first time in a big way to celebrate your love and you guys getting married. And I think that positive kind of like persistence about the bigger picture really will help couples that were in this scenario. And in fact, I found that a lot, that my positivity was very helpful for some of the folks that got impacted by the pandemic that were my clients. On the bad side of positivity, sometimes it can go too far. So imagine a DJ who just hours before a wedding or an event gets word that the mother of one of the VIPs, let's say it's the bride at the wedding, passed away the night before, okay? And the DJ knows this, and it's very fresh, obviously, but everybody wants to go on with the event. And and the DJ is a little too chipper, a little bit too overly positive. When, not that you want to make it awake or make it really sad, but you definitely don't want to, just be super bubbly and over the top. And I think that an overly positive person can sometimes do that. They can misread the room and strike a tone that is not appropriate, or just be a little bit too bubbly. And that's something surely that could be a bad outcome. Okay, some potential blind spots. You might be labeled as a Pollyanna or having rose-colored glasses. I've heard that one before. So what you want to do is, of course, you don't want to always only focus on the positive, but that can be a blind spot for us with high positivity. Also, we will be drained by negative or cynical people. It's just a fact. So try not to hang around those people too often. Okay, some hacks for positivity. Find opportunities to use your natural energy on purpose. Okay, so if you're on projects, you're at events, how can you funnel and leverage your positivity up front in front of a large audience in ways that people can feed off of it and derive energy themselves so they can push through? So try to find those opportunities. Plan celebrations or activities to take advantage of the positive aspects of life. That milestone win in your project, achievements, of course, holidays, or anything really, ways that will bring people together and celebrate. That'll energize you and even be a benefit to others. Collect great little stories, news, jokes, whatever. Those are ammo for you to pick a room up, to pick up somebody who's in the dumps. Those kind of things, those little nuggets will be great for you to collect and use to even strengthen your positivity more. Okay, guys, Relator, and this is the final strength. This is the last strength in the relationship building domain. So Relator is people strong in Relator enjoy close relationships with others. They find deep satisfaction in working hard with friends to achieve a goal. BFFs, okay? I think this really is a cool theme for sure, and it's very human. Okay, a good example of this would be, and this is a real scenario that happens to me, and this happened for sure. I'm not high in Relator in terms of my Relator is not on my top 5, but here's a scenario that's happened to me for sure. An event, imagine the DJ meets a photographer and they hit it off. They vibe with each other. There's a really good mutual respect, and they like each other's work. And the work ethic is very synonymous. So imagine they meet, they hit it off, and then all of a sudden they connect over socials, and then they're starting to see each other at events together where they might be referring each other. They might see each other more and more at more events, and they become friends and form a deep relationship, which is so cool because obviously you're forming almost like for your couples, a dream team. And in fact, the couple maybe will notice that and comment like, oh yeah, my vendors, I had the dream team and it was great. So that's a powerful thing that comes out of deep relationships with those around you, of course. And Relator, that's a really good example of a DJ with high Relator, leveraging it for not only a great outcome, but just very fulfilling experiences. So here's a negative side of Relator, let's say. Imagine if a DJ became very close with a venue owner, okay? And they became really close, best friends. All of a sudden, the DJ might start like bad-mouthing other venues because they know that their friend wants to grow the business. So when asked about venue so-and-so, they suck, they're horrible, you should go to this venue. So it's almost like a friendship kind of like toxicity, if you will. That might be a bad part of Relator. Okay, some potential blind spots. It might be hard for people to feel like they can get to know you because you want to form a long-term relationship, but you don't just form those long-term relationships right out of the gate. They take time. So people might feel like it's hard. It takes a while to get to know you. Once you are fully formed in a relationship, you might be a little bit too, there might be some trust issues. You might be overly clingy to the person, that kind of thing. Those could be some potential blind spots. Okay, here's some hacks for building on Relator. So find ways to strengthen your existing relationships. Make time for them to do that. Make time. So celebrate milestones for your friends or your loved ones. Learn more about them. Go on experiences together. So you're strengthening those relationships you already have. That will even make your Relator even stronger. It will energize you too. If you have unresolved issues with people around you or people that you love or people you care about and you want those relationships, work to resolve them with genuine enthusiasm. Don't let it fester. Just work through it, because it's going to pay off a whole bunch if you work on it now, and you can restore those relationships that were so meaningful to you. Expand your circle slowly. You know, we talked about you build relationships over time. Expand your circle slowly by finding relationships that you can sense that loyalty, that sincerity, and maybe there's a strong bond forming. So you want to expand your circle, but you want to make sure it's with the right folks, right? Organize fun with your team. If you have a team at work or whatever, organize fun outside of work where you can form better relationships and let you leverage your strength as the Relator. All right, guys, we have finished all 34 strengths. If you watch this video all the way through, wow, you're a beast. I meant for this to be a reference material where you can bounce around to listen to your individual strengths, or perhaps your top 5, and listen to just some ideas and some definition and maybe some hacks to feed your dragon. Hopefully this is helping you to kind of understand what these strengths mean and put it in context of DJing. So we have just gone through the video 2, details about strength. Next up will be video number 3, where we're going to talk about a call to action. What do you do with all this? And what are some next steps for you to use your strengths? Guys, thank you so much for joining me here on my channel. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel and make sure to see video 3. And I'm really excited to take that next step with your strengths. Take care, and I'll see you next time.